Episode 216. The chat said, what did Matt do this time? Yeah, we're 3 minutes late. And frankly, it was my fault that time. Probably added an extra 30 seconds. I went live without connecting to the live chat.
It was my fault too, because we were diving into some juicy details that I don't know if we're going to talk about.
Well,
but
some I might spill. Yeah. If I get asked a question, I might spill some of it later. Interesting stuff in the off season that you get to hear about. We're here with everybody. Nick,
hello.
Ben, Josh.
Yes.
It's episode 216, as I mentioned. We're excited. And by the way, looking really forward to, not announcing right now, but our presenting sponsor coming up starting in January. You guys can speculate a little bit, but we're excited about that. We will give you more details once we have them, and we're excited to eventually talk about them publicly. Other than that, we got snow in New England, where I am, just around the corner from Maple Hill, to put it in perspective for everybody. We got like 8 or 9 inches the other day. So that was the first snow in my new house. And then I played Team Challenge the next day at Bufhamville, which, man, disc golf, it is more exhausting when you're walking through snow and going around Buff 2 times and then a playoff to play extra holes. It was hiking and throwing in the snow. It was awesome.
It's tough.
It was awesome. It made a lot of those holes even easier for me. I could just skip them off the ice. Okay. Anyways, you guys, anything great this past weekend? Not so
not
much,
really,
Josh.
No, just yeah. I bought a chair. So,
true. Nick's
I
the
actually
gaming chair.
Yeah, I can sit comfortably when I'm doing the podcast now, rather than hunching over everything. And I actually feel comfortable. And like I was saying to you guys just a second ago, if everyone hears just some sort of vibrating, it's because my chair has massage feature for my neck and my back. And so, if I feel like I'm doing this a little bit too long, flip the switch and here we go. Now I'm going to be comfortable
massage
again.
Chair.
Yeah, dude, didn't even know that I bought it. I was Cyber Monday shopping. I had a $200 Amazon gift card from last Christmas. And I was like, what are 2 things that I've really been needing? One was a computer chair just for when I'm working at home or, gaming, because I love playing Call of Duty right now.
Or the show.
Or the show, exactly. And then the next thing is I bought a really nice desk that is hopefully going to be here tomorrow, and I'll have that set up.
Wow.
You guys won't be able to see that, but I did buy both of those things for under $200 on Cyber Monday, so I was pretty stoked about that. Yeah, pretty stoked. And then found out when I got the chair that I had a massage feature, and I was like, dang, okay, sweet.
Yeah, no, I did not buy any new chairs or furniture, but I just kind of fighting a cold through the weekend, but a lot of time in front of the computer. I'm tinkering with learning how to live stream from OBS and YouTube and digital assets, and then doing coding websites on the side. And, with like Copilot and ChatGPT, it just writes whatever I need. It's pretty impressive. So a lot, honestly, kind of a low-key weekend for me on purpose, just recovering from a cold. But,
wow.
Well, kind of on the topic of, technology, is I was doing my whole, scroll through stuff in the morning. And one of the Instagram reels that I saw was from a video game, and it was a really cool sword fight. And I've always been fascinated with medieval sword fights, kind of that era of life. And obviously video games accentuate it a little bit more, but I thought it was really cool because with animation, you can get, them to do stuff that obviously is physically impossible for the average human to do. But it was really cool watching how it was all portrayed. And I was thinking in my head, I was like, how, obviously it's super difficult. I didn't go to college for any of this, but I'd love to figure out how to create animations like that, almost like a video game creator does and stuff like that. But anyways, I don't think I'm going to get into that, but yeah, go for it.
Okay. So I know we're off on a tangent, but I like this stuff. So AI, which is, I'm kind of in that industry. I'm not really an AI expert, but I do work in that space. And OpenAI, so ChatGPT, their firm, released what's called Sora today, Nick. So SORA. It is AI video generation. All you do is put a prompt in and it'll give it to you. So you could go in there and say, I want to see animation with characters that look like whatever you have in mind, sword fighting, and it will give you an actual rendered video clip.
How much does this cost? How do I buy this?
There's free tiers and there's pay tiers, but in fact they just released today and it's bombarded. They've had to slow down signups, so you can't sign up for an account right now, but they're slowly releasing it.
That's good to know.
So you mentioned like you want to get into animation, the world of AI, and I'm sure there's differing opinions from creators and art and all that. But like the point is you don't have to learn a thing about it. Just learn how to request what you want, and you're going to
Yeah.
get your animation.
Then I could create. Yeah. Sick.
Okay.
Okay. Cool.
That's always fun
All
with
right.
tangents.
Are we talking about disc golf
Yeah,
now?
the side tangent is that, or back to the
It's off
normal
season. There's
tangent.
nothing happening in the disc golf world, right?
We were
Matt?
gone for
Nothing?
a week.
Nothing was happening.
And the
what
world
I'm
blew
saying.
up. No, it was literally
Not quite.
Ken Climo rises from the ashes of not playing to now being the biggest conversation in disc golf. You also had Player of the Year, FPO, announce both of those in our off week. Now, we talked about coming back and doing a show specifically after we said we weren't going to. Then we decided to let everyone else talk about it, figure out what they wanted, and we'll just bring the real news on those conversations. So we have inside scoops. I don't know how much we'll get into on it, but we can at least share our opinions on it, and we'll see where else the conversation may go. So stick around for that. But we also have an interview lined up tonight. Ben, who do we got?
We got Jefferson from the disc golf world. We figured that, he's basically disc golf's news coverage outlet, that he might have some information on some things that we're going to talk about, and we're kind of going to get in depth of his start and all that. So stay tuned. It's going to be very interesting.
YouTube algorithms sent me their latest podcast YouTube venture, talking disc golf stories. I think they were talking Cactus Rock, Nick. They
Gotcha.
They took a trip down there, and I think it was, we can ask them about it. It was pre it being open, so they were playing without pads.
That was a long
and
time
all
ago.
that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they've been doing a lot, and I'm sure you've seen their YouTube thumbnails, and you've probably been inclined to click on a few. So
Yeah.
And kind of, just really quickly speaking on Cactus Rock, one of the things that we talk about off season doesn't have a lot of content going on. The Disc Golf Network just released the 4 episodes for the Finding the Line series, which was heavily around the Williams brothers, Paul Macbeth, and Dylan Cease, and kind of the inception. Avery Jenkins was there as well. The inception of Cactus Rock, how it got its name, and how building the course went. And it's just really awesome to see if you're ever interested in what it takes to buy a piece of land that doesn't have a single thing done on it, and then create what I think will be one of the world's best courses. Watch that series. It's really, really cool. And shout out the Williams brothers. They're incredible.
yeah, and it's, what else was incredible, Nick, is I have this connection now in my head, and I love meeting people, obviously, in real life. Like, we talk to people through these microphones every week. They feel like they get to know us. And it's not until we get out to the courses and people come up and talk to us that we get to meet them. But one of the cool things in Disc Golf Connections is obviously, like, between Dylan, meeting him, and then you got us tickets, or he did. I don't know how it worked, but you reached out.
Yeah,
We got
he
tickets.
got the tickets.
Yeah, to a Red
me,
Sox
yeah.
game where he was pitching. And that is a moment for me. Like, we're not here to tell our own personal stories, but I grew up in Massachusetts. I've gone to a lot of Fenway Park games with the Red Sox. And then to have an opposing pitcher, but be there in Fenway, and then, like, invite us down onto the grass, or, like, that was incredible. Like, that moment in my mind is just, like, burned there in a good way. And then I got to meet some of the brothers, like the guys who are doing the course down there. They were there as well. So it's cool to meet these people in real life, and they're like, oh yeah, we like listening and all that. So shout out to you guys. They're getting so much love in this disc golf world right now, and I don't know that many people actually know who they are, but they're getting so much love just because they're investing so much time into that property, and people are cannot wait to play it. So
I mean, they came all the way to Olympus to help me install the new tee pads that we put there. And for a grind of a process that it is, they're, arguably, it's one of those things where we're, arguably the number 1 course in Florida, and we had slippery tee pads before. And then now we have tee pads that everyone is absolutely in love with. So we're super stoked about that. But that's huge on the Williams brothers' part, just the amount of time and effort that it takes to do those things. And they don't stop. It's sun up to sundown with them. And then, we have a campfire, hang out.
We're going to dance all night. Dance all night to this DJ.
So, no, they're great. It's really cool. It's a wild project. Anyone that's looking to ever buy land and start a disc golf course, it's a wild project.
Paige Pierce just posted in her social media story that she was at a friend's property playing disc golf, and she's like, now I am on the search for my own property so I can have a home course.
Holland Hanley, has her own private course that she's practicing. I'll say it again. I think 2025, Holland Hanley's going to pop off. The amount of time and effort that she's going to be able to put in Oklahoma this offseason. But that's for future future topics when we have an episode dedicated to.
We'll
what our
pick off the
2025
pop-off
predictions.
player
Coming.
of the year.
Yeah, it's coming
Well,
fast.
I have a comment that I wanted to mention.
We'll allow.
Thank you. One, it was my birthday on Saturday, so
Oh,
I'm
happy
now
belated.
26. Two, more importantly, I dropped the Disc Golf Expo tickets.
Oh, I thought you said you
On
dropped
Saturday.
the expo. Like, goodbye.
No,
Could
I
you
dropped the
imagine
Disc
just,
Golf
like, not
Expo
getting to it?
tickets, and if you use code DISCMISS from now until Christmas evening, you get $3 off each ticket. And we have a new tier at VIP ticket pricing. You get an hour early and a very limited exclusive MVP disc. And a lot of the tickets already sold. So if you want a VIP disc from MVP, don't wait because they might sell out before you know it. That's all.
I half expected to see you show up in your Santa Claus outfit for the show.
I should have. Why didn't I? Why? I guess I'll have to wait for like our Christmas episode.
No, you just got to step out for a minute, walk by in your Santa outfit, and come back and be like, "Do you guys see anybody? There was someone in my room."
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
So this is
dressing up as
just
Santa.
the casual banter, off-season talk, and Ben's doing big things as we've always talked about. So that's pretty cool.
Trying.
Glad you told everybody about that opening up, and it's going to be a real success. Everyone get those tickets. All right, man. I don't even have the itinerary for sure. I think we're just going to talk a lot of cool things. But Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, we've got a lot. I mean, we can move to an interview, but let me say, we're going to talk about Climo. I think we're going to talk about some other sponsors. How about, I mean, specifically Isaac, maybe Ezra, but dropping all these Easter egg hints, probably having a good time with it, but it certainly leaves us to speculate. We're seeing challenges, some people dropping out of the tour in 2025. I think we've got plenty of things we can debate tonight, but I also know we've got an interview lined up, and maybe we'll actually overlap some of those topics and see where we can go with that. But I say let's, if we're ready, are we ready to roll on the interview?
Dude,
I think so.
I think you're the one doing the interview, Josh. Are you ready to roll?
Let's see. I'm gonna give it a go here. I'm trying something that we don't always do. Let's go like this. Welcoming to the show, Jefferson, the disc golf
Jeff.
world. Boom. Let me make sure he's unmuted. All right, there we go. We're good to go. So welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Thanks for having me.
Got a real
Appreciate
microphone
guys.
and everything.
I'd kind of try to do this at least a little professional.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Let's see on our side. It's going to do like this auto gain thing for you. People are going to go, wow, he's really loud. And I'm going to see if I can adjust it here. But you're definitely coming through a little warm, or hot. But we'll mess around with it.
That's right. I'm just glad you
You ever
didn't jump
wonder why
on
they
and just.
say?
What'd you say, Nick?
I was gonna say, you ever wonder why they call it like a microphone's hot? Like, why not just say, "Hey, your mic's loud"? Why do you gotta say it's
It
hot?
has to do with
It's just-
electricity.
Is that what it is? Gotcha.
Like
'Cause
that's the very
whenever-
basic.
Yeah,
sense.
growing up, I come from a very musicianal family, and it was always like, "Nick, that mic's hot," and I'm just like, "Okay." Turn
But
it
it's
down. I
also
don't know what
like
else to tell you.
colors of audio and frequencies. Like you get red, and that's loud. And anyways,
Did not know that.
Okay.
Gotcha.
so now
Well,
we
yeah, I
just,
guess I knew the green and the red. but-
Jefferson, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, officially
We'll start
welcome.
it
I was going to
over.
say, do we like start by saying thank you for not calling us degenerates? I think that's how you often
Yeah,
start.
Disc
just
golf.
degenerates.
Degenerates.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yeah. So I think you heard me kind of tee it up. I mean, you're in the disc golf media world. Thank you for joining us, making that
He
connection
is a
with Ben.
disc golf world.
I think, yeah, well, that's
Half
true.
of it.
But, yeah.
Half of it.
I
Well,
think I met you briefly
I
at the
met-
expo. Was that last year? Was it
Mhm.
last year?
Yep.
And I feel like you've put out 1,000 videos since then. We've seen a lot of growth. I actually do want to get to some different topics that may be interesting. All right,
For sure.
Ben, we see the hat. But tell us a little bit. So you've been into disc golf yourself for how long? And then what I really want to ask too is like, so what prompted you to get into disc golf media, like creation of the channel and going? Give us that intro.
So I don't know exactly how long I've been playing disc golf. It's like teenage, young, when I was like in middle school probably. But I've been making disc golf content since like 2017. I had an old channel, if anyone watched, it was called JK Disc Golf, where I just took my iPhone and I made like a little Lego tripod, and I would just walk around my local courses and just talk about just whatever disc golf was going on. And back then, not really a whole lot of people were making disc golf content, so everything seemed new. So I'm really cringy looking back. I mean, I had a perm in half those videos, and I didn't want those on the internet anymore.
Oh my God.
So those are all mostly taken off, but I like to reference them and bring them up. But I've been disc golf, just content creation ever since I was young. I've always just been super interested in making videos, so it just naturally was my hobby, and I just been doing it probably since 2017, just pretty
Got it.
consistently.
And so the disc golf world as a channel itself is just a couple years, right?
Yeah, we started like the beginning of 2023 doing very brief recaps of things, then it quickly just expanded from there.
Okay. And so what's your approach on the channel now? I mean, I can see it, so I have a guess, but I'm curious how you would explain, yeah, this is what our channel is, this is what we do, this is how we approach it.
Yeah, so the off season is a little bit different because it's slowing up. I mean, right now there seems like the whole lot
Yeah,
going
it's
on,
picking up, yeah.
but during the season, basically, like our main show that we started was Swiss Cheese. My uncle, actually, if those don't know, we started this whatever style we do it. You know, the B-roll, you see the clips going on. It was This Week in Disc Golf, where we just talked about everything that happened in the week, because our approach is, we noticed that when you're really immersed in disc golf, you think everybody knows everything, and quickly when you go to your leagues, you know that the older gentleman doesn't have Reddit, doesn't have Instagram. So we really just took it as, hey, all this disc golf information content that's being missing for these demographic that surrounds disc golf usually is missing, and we just put it at the forefront. And then it changed into us giving our opinions more. We really tried at the beginning, just be like, hey, this is the disc golf information that you might have missed. Here you go. And then that was once a week. And then it was like, all right, now we need to recap tournaments on Mondays. And then there was so much information we needed to do videos on Wednesdays. And then it just, snowballed from there.
It's taken off from there. Now you've got over 1,400 videos on the channel, I think.
Wow.
So I'm curious about what is that evolution where you were like, we're going to just share the factual news to kind of moving to opinion? Because I actually think this is a lot of what we'll go there tonight, but being accused of clickbait or what are your sources or different things. I'm just curious your take. But my point is how did you evolve, or did it just happen, or what, to kind of move from like purely factual journalism versus like opinion? Just curious what that was like for you or why you did that.
I can't pinpoint like a specific point, obviously, but I feel genuinely it happened probably last off season, because during the season we were just getting basically fed stuff because disc golf was going on. There was always topics to talk about. And just a little background too is I graduated college and then I lived in a minivan following the pro tour for 3 months. So I was me coming back. So it was like, I don't know what to do with my life. It felt like this disc golf content creation was a way that it was going. So it was like, we were posting upwards of 5 videos a week, and now disc golf was over. We needed things to continue to talk about. So it just naturally, we had to fill the gaps in with our takes or our opinions. And then it seemed that didn't go away. I mean, as the season goes on, we try to just be like, yo, this is what's happening. But very quickly, our opinion, I mean, we're writing it passionately. I love disc golf more than anything in my life. I can't not talk about it the way I feel.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I mean, it's fun seeing the growth, seeing your passion. I think, again, I'm speaking specific as when I met you, but I think you were in your van when you came out to the expo, right? And that was, was that a year ago or a little less than a year ago, I guess, right? So kind of semi-early still in some of this journey. What's it been like seeing your channel grow? I mean, you got over 25,000 subscribers. How's that felt?
It's funny because clearly when I'm on the road, not everyone, but people will come up to me, talk about the channel, love it. When I come home, besides my local disc golf leagues, no one knows about disc golf world. No one knows disc golf. Honestly, I tell more people that I'm unemployed and I don't do anything because I don't want to go the stretch of this micro YouTube celebrity thing where it's like, it's nothing. I'm a nobody. We just talk about disc golf and somehow we're reaping some of the benefits and building from there. But yeah, it's cool just to go on the disc golf. I probably haven't gone to a course where I haven't been like, are you part of the disc golf world, or you make videos, in a really long time, which it's cool to me because it shows that what disc golf has been and what sort of small impact that we could possibly be having.
Yeah. What do you think? So what's gone well for you, which clearly your channel's grown, or what do you feel maybe hasn't gone so well? Maybe a different, nicer way to phrase it would be like, what have you learned from any of this? But just curious about the ups and downs that you faced in growing a channel, even over the last, year or two.
I feel like the biggest thing that we always come back to, and trust me, Swiss and I talk about this a lot for the people that don't believe us, the clickbait thing, and from the beginning, just trying to it just felt really like, I know that for the longest time, we would always title our Monday video "Drama from this tournament," and that, in my head, was the solution to cool, we don't have to draw up any random title. It was like, I can have this title, guarantee. At the time, it was like 20,000 views. In my head, it was like, cool, we can just do this. No one's mad about this title. We're going to continue doing that. And then quickly, that was not the case. And I learned, okay, we need to evolve from that. And then, but even like, man, the one that I just hate, like how this is social media and like the way like the world is. But we had a Casey White interview, and it got like I woke up the next morning and it was our worst video in like 6 months, and it was heartbreaking because it was like one of the coolest stories I felt like we were able to bring. And then all I did was change the title to, instead of Casey White becoming a pro disc golfer, it was how Simon Lazat's cameraman became a pro disc golfer. And overnight, it got 25,000 views.
Right.
And it just sucked because it's like, why is it just because I put Simon Lazat's name, people want to click on it more? It's more enticing, but it genuinely, like in my head, it's like, I even texted Casey because like, bro, I'm sorry that I had to put you this way, but I think you would like this thousands many more people hearing your story, becoming your fan, and hopefully they can learn Casey White is the guy talking after this time.
And I can't speak for Casey White, but he was probably like, yeah, bro, that's cool, whatever, man. Chill, dude.
For sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. So like, let's hone in on this a little bit, just because I think, right, some of the criticism, and I'm just to be very clear, you help interpret what I'm asking, because when I say criticism, we're talking about online media criticism, like, which, you know, to some extent, I'm curious how much you discount that or discredit it as trolls, etc. So like, you can put this in any category you want. I'm just observing what I see. You get plenty of criticism about like sometimes your raw opinions or clickbait, obviously be a big one. Like, how does that sit with you? Do you kind of dismiss that? Because we get stupid comments in our chats, you know, too, right? So just curious where you're at with that. You kind of mentioned it a little bit about maybe you're having to play the system that's out there. But like, what's your take? Because there is a lot of flack that you also catch, even though your views are going up and up and up.
Yeah, I guess, man, for a long time, I was really bad at it. I took every comment to my heart. And then I think just you learn from and you grow and you realize, okay, yes, there's going to be trolls and they're going to put out and say whatever. But honestly, I had a really big thing where I was like, just don't comment back, because whatever I'm going to comment back is not going to be interpreted the way I'm the genuine and the authentic side of like isn't going to come off. People are going to read it as I'm being a jerk. And that wasn't the case. And then eventually I just broke that and I was like, hey, this is why I do this certain way. And then they would always comment back, oh, didn't know that, didn't see that. So it felt like when we could describe it a little bit more and explain, yes, this is unfortunately a little bit of a game. And for us, man, we like this paid for our gas money from tour to tour, because we lived on the pro tour in our van for 6 months. So we needed that money. So sometimes, and it felt dirty to do that. But at the same time, like, it just felt like at the end of the day, we were telling the side of the disc golf that maybe wasn't being told. Because in our videos, some of the lower tier, I hate using that term, but I think we can get a broader people what I'm talking about there. They weren't getting any attention. So sometimes the only time they were in any sort of media or getting attention was from our clips and our videos. So it was like, oh, cool. This one person is going to be so mad about this clickbait and this one, honestly, one word, because we put drama in the title. That was what made people so mad. But if at the end of the day, Kevin Kiefer or Connor O'Reilly got 30 seconds of people could look at that and be like, whoa, I never knew this guy. I'm a fan. I didn't care anymore. And I, like I said, more explaining it and people understood it. I think it got better with that. But yeah, I think it just, part of me just needed to realize like, hey, and the one thing I do is I look at the like to dislike ratio and I'm like, man, these are getting 95% like to dislike. If it was really that big of a problem, people were actually mad, like in numbers, this wouldn't be still an A in grade scale. And because I interpret to school, obviously, always. But.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you're getting an A or an A plus, maybe an A minus is still acceptable. C is passing, right? So you're killing it.
D is passing.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. D is also passing. So I'm curious. So that makes sense. So thank you for elaborating on that. Obviously, like, yeah, you're in the YouTube world, and it's fairly known right now that thumbnails and titles are like the thing. So like, you do you and drive your channel. I'm curious if you've faced any blowback, and you may or may not feel comfortable sharing this. I have no idea, but more specific. What I mean is a manufacturer or a pro tour staff or a particular player, and whether you want to share or not, like, I'm curious, have you faced that? Because to your point, like, you're exposing things. This is what you said, right? That you feel like aren't talked about as much, but are reality, which some people love, and I imagine some people are sensitive to that. Has that happened to you yet?
For sure.
Okay.
We'll leave it at that, though, unfortunately.
Okay.
For now.
All right. That's fine. And so here's the other question, kind of, it's in the same genre, not the same question, is I feel like especially more, I don't know if recently is fair to say, but you're obviously getting sources and just like, how has that been for
Get
you?
it
Meaning
out,
well, I'm trying to think, like you're getting sources which can come from all different angles. Is that an intentional part of your strategy here, is to get these sources, but obviously protect your sources and continue to share news, right? But share a fairly raw side of the news. Just curious your like perspective on that.
Yeah, and it's funny because we read all the comments where people are like saying our sources are lies or whatever, and it's funny to say sources too, because now when I interpret it, it's like these are just my
Yeah,
friends
they're
texting
people,
me.
right? Yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah, I've lived with these. I lived in Cracker Barrel parking lots with the people that are texting me things that they just hear through the grapevine, and obviously, then I will always confirm. I'm not just going to go on the internet and say things without at least checking a little bit. So we are told definitely things where it's like, we're gonna keep this one to ourselves before we
Well,
can
that's
really
interesting.
put
This
it
is what
out
I was
there.
going to ask. So I don't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to ask that specifically. Are you getting information that you're choosing not to share?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah. I mean, it'll come out eventually. We need to like make sure that it's like I would hate to put something out that's just not true, or I mean, some things might not come true or they change, but I would just hate to like I need to hear at least from 2 or 3 people before I'm going to put anything out there, I guess, when it comes down to it.
Yeah, so is that, well, so Matt, you have a question. So is Ezra Robinson confirmed
I
joining
was just
Discraft?
gonna say.
I mean, from what I heard, he's confirmed 2 years of Discraft. So,
And I was just going to
And
ask
I'm
about
not-
Climo too, because it's funny all the stuff that we hear, and I'm interested in your perspective because we were hearing things pre-show that make us feel like the Ultiworld article is not accurate. But I don't know how you feel. Do you have different sources?
So the interesting is that I saw the title of the stagger stance before I like clicked on it. I saw that it was a fabricated.
Oh, did it work to get you to click?
Yeah, well, he's on
I feel
the
like I was
show.
clicking regardless. But I did click on it.
Just messing, bro.
Yeah, we kind of forced him to click it.
Click it regardless.
However,
Thumbs up.
I think I don't know the timeline. I thought we released that Climo was going to Discraft before that Ultiworld article. However, I never heard the 200,000 or that rumor. That was not so. I believe they probably didn't come from the same source, but we did hear that Climo was going to Discraft with a Climo line of discs coming out as well. That is what I heard.
Are most of your sources players on the tour?
Majority,
Again, you
yeah.
don't have to answer any of these. I'm not trying to.
Well, yeah.
I'm not trying to put you in the hot seat, but I am curious. So I'm asking.
It's yeah.
Oh, yeah, I get it.
Well,
Mostly touring players, as opposed to other people in the industry, right? What I mean by that is manufacturers, vendors, pro tour employees, maybe they all blend together. To your point, they're your friends on the tour, but curious if most of it's players versus other.
Yeah, definitely a lot of players come to us with just any random info, because a lot of times, like living on, I always say that. What I mean by that is just I'm at all the events, experiencing it. Is they will tell. So half the drama, I'm using air quotes. I keep
So we
cut
don't
out,
get in
but
trouble. Yeah.
yeah, is players will just tell us like, hey, this is what's being told, or this is what's being talked amongst us. So it's like, okay, cool. And then that just seemed to translate over to when we were home. They were just in the Instagram DMs be like, hey, just heard this, just in case you wanted to know. Oh yeah, cool. I'm always gonna take the information, but so not gonna say no.
I will just say it's an interesting thing, and I appreciate the question Josh asked you is like, do you hold some stuff back? And I'm going to say this now, but this is in, I don't know if the word's hindsight or retrospect to the Climo deal being announced. But day number 1, as it's being announced by Innova, a source tells me, here's all the information. And I'm thinking, that's pretty cool. Like, thanks for telling me. But do I literally run with that in that moment and be like, hey, everybody, Staggered Stance has the breaking news? And so, like, what's your perspective with that as the disc golf world? Do you see that kind of as a role of yours? You're like, as soon as we have it substantiated and you feel good, it's not a lie, do you feel like, man, we want to be the first to break it? Like, is that where you're at with it?
I guess I never felt like we had to. Like, I'm not eager to be like, we need to be the first person out. We have pretty established, like, we're gonna have a video Monday and Friday. So whatever we talked about then. And I get like, to the people that don't want, because I don't know if you were implying this, so I'm
not trying to imply something.
No,
but no, go ahead.
That just wait, where I was gonna go with this is because I feel like for a long time it was you weren't supposed to talk about players dropping or whatever you hear. And to me, I understand the perspective that it's supposed to be a special time for the players or whatever. But again, like the Ezra news, we never like it could come up tomorrow who's going to MVP. Like I can't say it's 100% true. It's just what we're hearing through the grapevine. At the same time, I would hope the perspective is we got a lot more people talking about Ezra Robinson in the past 2 months that would have, or 2 weeks or whatever it was, than it ever would have been otherwise. And it's going to continue until he announces it, building hype, building whatever. And honestly, if the contract isn't, I mean, it's a weird perspective because I know a lot of people have an idea of what a disc golf contract is, but the more we learn that these things just aren't as concrete as they
Right.
appear. So like it could be 2 seconds, Ezra, another company's like, wait, you're going to go to Discraft and we'll sign you there. And it seems like if we create that conversation, that opportunities arise. Plus, we're in the dark ages of disc golf media. If we can have meaningful, valuable conversations right now, where it's not just stupid banter or mystery box openings, I feel like that will continue to build our sport. Like instead of just going dark for a couple months, it's like, yo, what's happening? Can I talk about this with my friends? And I feel like that's a bridge that has just been like taboo for so long, where I don't understand why it was so bad to talk about in the first place.
Yeah, first of all, I wasn't trying to imply anything. I think what you were hearing from that is probably me trying to navigate, because how long have you been in disc golf? You mentioned it, I think, when you first came in. I might have missed it.
Like, I've been like pretty involved, like knowing or like keeping up with professional disc golf since like 2017.
Okay, so what is that, like 8 years or so? Okay.
Sure, yeah.
I'm just trying to throw it out there, and I'm not saying I think I'm coming from a different place in my mindset. I've been disc golfing maybe 17 plus years, and like it's an interesting thing. And I remember talking. I'm going to throw Terry Miller's name out there, the legend that he is. Like I've talked to Terry. We did video editing on tour, and like we hear things, and I don't remember, so I can't put words in his mouth, but something along the lines of he's like, these are a lot of my friends. Like it's harder for me, or what would I do? Would I just come out and say this? And like, he's navigating that friendship news thing. Do you feel like you're going to have to navigate that? And I bring this up because who's your buddy that was in your video the other day, podcast that you guys were doing, an episode?
That's my Uncle Swiss Cheese.
Okay.
He's the other guy, main guy on the channel.
Okay. So Uncle Swiss Cheese, you guys were out at you were talking about Waco. And you said you were on the property, and some people are like, hey, like, don't video some of this stuff. And in my head, I'm immediately going, I know exactly what's happening there. Like, I've been at these events too, and knowing like these people are like, hey, this is kind of our private area. But are they concerned? Are you going to be losing the opportunity where people are going to start closing down to you because they're like, we don't want you to know about what's happening? You know what I mean? And then it becomes more of this like cat and mouse thing where you're like, well, we're going to find it out. And like, how do you see that evolving? Are you gaining relationship or losing it?
I mean, I haven't seen a loss of a relationship,
Okay,
but I guess that could be people just not talking to me anymore. But I feel I'm very like, and everyone that's told me information, that stuff that we don't talk about, as soon as someone's like off the record, or we don't want this known, or we will never talk about like that. You're good. Like,
yeah.
And that's when you say Waco, when people talk about it, as soon as they're like, don't record this, and then they'll go on and tell me a spiel of things.
Yeah.
And all like the Discraft thing, the Climo thing, those were all specifically like, I didn't reach out to anybody. They were like, here's this information. And I was specific. I was very on the Discraft or the Ezra thing. I asked, I was like, should we keep quiet, or is this okay to talk about? And he said, all yours, run with it. So that's where I was more like,
I don't think it's bad for the sport. If I'm going to put out my opinion, I don't think it's bad for the sport that things are getting leaked. Like that's good for the sport in a lot of ways. Whether or not that player wants it or not, that's something to be talked about. Whether or not the company wants it or not, that's something. And that goes back to saying navigating those relationships. But I don't know.
Or because our sport, to your point, contracts may not always be what people think they are. And could you actually disrupt? And this is not actually pointed at you, Jefferson. This is actually, I'm talking on the topic. Could we or anybody actually disrupt actual contracts by kind of, like in other words, if Discraft, I'm using the word if they're really going to pay $200,000 or whatever to Climo, or they're not sure if they were going to, and then that's leaked, and next thing you know, the whole leverage on the discussion is completely different, right? And by the way, I'm not saying that's a bad or good thing. I'm actually just curious, like, it's an interesting place. This could happen in other sports as well, by the way. It's just where we are in our evolution is pretty unique, I think. I don't know. That's more of a comment on my part. Anybody can react to that.
Nick, do you have anything to say about this? We're getting on this topic.
So I was going to kind of bounce off of what Jefferson was saying earlier is, like, let's say, a majority of leakers, as Joe Gibson used to call them, the leaky leakers, a majority of them are players who are friends with players that are moving around companies. So it's like, hey, let's say Ezra's group, and I'm just throwing out random names, so don't anyone take this to heart. But let's say you have Ezra Robinson potentially going to Discraft. You have Gavin Babcock feeding Jefferson kind of the juicy details with it because Gavin and Ezra are very, very good friends. Like Jefferson was saying earlier, is that right now more people are talking about Ezra Robinson than have been in the past month or two. Now that disc golf has really slowed down. So that's kind of brought Ezra's popularity back up. So for players, they think this is great. But no one's going to beat, realistically, when, let's say it's Discraft. No one's going to beat the amount of popularity he's going to gain from when Discraft finally does market it and release everything. So I could see it from a manufacturer standpoint. They're kind of unhappy with the leakage. I don't think, disc golf, yes, contracts are notoriously pretty bad, especially the last few years, or excuse me, before the last few years. Contracts have been pretty bad to where players, I don't think, could confidently say, hey, this is how much money we make. And I mean, I'm sure all of us have friends that, they've told us their contracts and we're like, how the hell do you even survive on the tour right now?
Yeah.
But yeah, so for a manufacturer, I think the way that things are getting leaked frustrates them a little bit when it comes to really marketing it the way that they want to, and kind of the big boom. Like when Paul left Innova, everyone kind of had the general idea that he was going to Discraft because back then those were the two biggest companies. They still are the two biggest companies, but it was pretty easy to say, like, MVP wasn't in the conversation really. Discmania wasn't really in the conversation because that was an Innova, company back in the day, partnership. So I guess that's kind of my take on it. I mean, most of the people that we're going to hear sources and the leaks from are going to be players probably pretty close to, and then it'll turn into, I heard it from this person.
What are your sources saying, Nick?
My sources, I actually have no idea. My sources, I got to word this correctly. I have
put
not.
him on the spot.
Yeah.
This is the problem. I'm going to comment. Jefferson, this is the problem with being on a live show. You're all post-produced, right?
Well, it was because when I also when I leaked Andrew Marweed a couple of years ago, and I don't know how many people caught up on it, but I accidentally said Marweed to DGA, and that was not at the time public knowledge. And then I was like, oh, but I thought he posted about it. No, he never posted about it. I'm an idiot. So, anyways, my sources have told me that the Ulti-World article is very, very fabricated, and I think it's very similar to when Simon also went over to MVP. It was a lot of like, hey, this source told me the $1 million over 10 years, stuff like that, when we don't really have any validity to that. And there still isn't for Simon's contract, at least. My sources, I have no idea about Ezra with Discraft and any sort of money that he's making. I don't know if it's a 2-year contract. I don't know anything like that. I have heard from people that more than likely it will be Discraft, but same thing, I don't 100% know. But then other ones with the Climo Ulti-World article was very, very off-based in the sense of the numbers are like, how did they get those numbers? Who knows about the Climo line of discs? And so, when it comes down to
they're quoted multiple industry sources, which I know is pretty vague, but that's an interesting way to
so that's
state
what I
it.
mean. Like, what is a multiple? We're an industry source, right?
Yeah. I mean, if I went to Ulti-World and said, hey, I got this information, it's substantiated, here's who it is, Ulti-World they could just say it.
Because you also got it from an industry source. Your source is an industry source. Like, we are all disc golf industry sources. So at some points you can say, like, you try, sources are obviously supposed to be anonymous, so we don't say who they are, but you can say, I'm pretty confident in my source that this is the real deal. So unless they have someone specific talking from Discraft, or it's a player that's really in the know about it, then it's kind of one of those things.
I just thought of a new game, a new segment, and segments are born from crazy ideas. But like, we should come on and just play a game called My Source Says, and we each have to do it, and then we see at the end of the day, like, I don't know, who has the best source.
But it's also one of those things where it's like, if my source is someone personally from Discraft, there's a handful of people that are from Discraft who you could probably point out who my source is pretty quickly. But now Jefferson, like you were saying earlier, a lot of players could be his source. Okay, now we're in a pool of 100 people plus, take the FPO division. Well, let's say we have 200 people that we have to decide who are his sources. So then I'm like, okay, I saw Jefferson at chess.com and he was really talking to Emerson Keith that weekend. I saw a lot of conversation. They went out to dinner together. So that's where it's like,
this is fun. This is a good
topic. We're still a pretty small sport.
Yeah.
which is an interesting angle for that.
You know, we don't
Jefferson,
have that Adam Schefter or that Woj, you know, the Woj guy, Wojnarowski, whatever his name
The
was.
guy
We
that's
don't- we don't-
always right.
Adrian.
Yes, we don't have that in our sport right now. Like, what was the one time he was
Maybe
wrong?
that's
Is exactly
Jefferson.
when Brady
Well, let's
was
ask
retiring.
Jefferson.
I want to say, I want to
What
hear
was
his
the
side.
biggest take or not leak the news that was wrong? Have you had that? Where you're like, oops, I probably shouldn't have said that. Can you think of one?
We said on the disc golf world.
Yeah, like where you're like, hey, source or this or that, and then it ends up being something different.
I mean, we've only been doing this for like 2 weeks. I feel like the source stuff. So I don't know if we've had. I mean, it could be in a couple weeks. I might text you like, "Oh, I was wrong about that one, guys." But I'm sure.
Come back on the show and apologize.
Actually, you know, I will say again, I don't know if this is true, but at one point when in that Ezra video, I was like, "Oh, it's funny that Ezra's only following Discraft and Prodigy." So the first thing I did was I looked at Isaacs, and at the time he was only following Discmania. But from what I'm hearing, I don't believe he's going to Discmania.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting to be able to say that because we can all talk and have these conversations every week and say similar things like, here's what I'm hearing. And at the end of the day, it's like, well, I guess I heard wrong if that's what happens. It's an interesting thing to navigate. And I don't know if you experienced this because maybe we've taken a little different, or I can say I have taken a little different avenue at this because I know we'll have conversations pre-show. And then it'll be like, are we going to talk about that? And we already kind of navigated that with you a little bit, Jefferson. But when you know this information too, and I said this last week, it's hard to have a conversation about something that you know and you're not supposed to, you know, quote, air quotes. Yeah. Like, you're like, I'm going to act dumb about this topic. And then people are like, well, why? And then it's like, even now, me having this conversation saying like, we know stuff we don't talk about, the comments will come flying in. Oh, Matt's just saying that to make it sound like he knows everything, you know? And it's like, no, I'm literally a person trying to navigate this. I'm not better than anybody. It's just people go to you, Jefferson, and tell you stuff. People come to us and tell us stuff. It's like, we're all just trying to figure out how to do it and increase our media. And I think it's a fun place to be.
So I've been on the receiving end of like, I have had sources tell me, hey, this is what's happening. These are the details of it. Very, very trusted ones. But I've been in the right place at the right time numerous times, and I'll be able to shed more light on that maybe in the next few months. But I've been in the right place at the right time where I accidentally overheard a phone call. You know, I'm in one room while the other person's in the other room on speakerphone, and I'm like, I definitely was not supposed to hear that. But I stay there listening. But it's something that I'm not trusted with that information.
The best part.
Yeah, so I'm not trusted with it.
I slowly throw my trash in the trash can.
I put the cup up against the door, and I'm like, okay, what are we doing in here? And but I'm not trusted with that information, so it's not like for myself personally. Sorry to Andrew Marweed when I accidentally leaked he was going to DGA, but like unless I'm given that information to where it's like. And I called a couple people today and I was like, hey, I got the show tonight. Can I say anything on the record? And it was like, honestly, probably steer away from talking about this or, you know, go ahead and talk about this. But unless I'm trusted with that information, I do try my best, whether I know it or not, I do try my best not to leak anything that is not my place to do it. Whether it gets us 50,000 views on a YouTube video or whatever, like, yeah, we may make a few $100s off of that. But at the same time, does that hinder my relationship with my potential sources or just friends of mine in the disc golf world in general? And it's not, the few $100s is not worth it to me.
So
maybe that's why I'd be a bad reporter. But at the same time, you know, I take the kind of credibility aspect of it.
I'm going back to Simon going to MVP, the second biggest change of all time. Paul being like probably at the forefront of big names changing. That was big and that was groundbreaking and it set the foundation for a lot of other things. But Simon happening in the prime, like during COVID, if you will, the boom and everything else related to that, that is massive. Ultiworld broke news, if you will, saying they had sources and years and money, and they're probably pretty close. I still can't substantiate it. But I remember I think I was going to get Domino's Pizza with Simon pre-interview. Like he gave us this solo interview on that, which was incredible. So we're going to get pizza. And I said, hey man, I don't always do this with, you know, guests of the show, but I want to make sure I run a few of these questions by you because this is a big deal. And I said, so what can you tell me, or can I ask you about the money? And it's based off of this much over this long. And he's like, that isn't accurate. and that news isn't even supposed to be out there at all. Ultiworld is not. That's not accurate. Nobody like that's not accurate. And I was like,
I'm assuming let's take Simon's contract. You got to assume that Andrew was a huge part of that, the team manager up there, and then Simon was a part of it. And if those numbers aren't released to the public from MVP themselves, then you have to assume that anyone who's involved with that contract is under an NDA. So more than likely, if someone from that small knit of people, they either broke their NDA by telling someone else what the numbers are and everything like that, and then that person leaked it. I mean, we know
but
from
news just
Ultiworld's-
goes. It's the telephone
Yeah.
game. Eventually, someone says, "This is
That's
what
the
I've
thing.
heard,"
Yeah.
and this person wouldn't be lying to me, and that person's
'Cause wasn't
probably
it-
not lying to them, but it's what they heard.
Yeah.
But here's where I'm just going with that. That
Wasn't it
wasn't
kind of
some-
someone? It was an employee of MVP, like just someone kind of in the warehouse aspect of it. I don't know if I'm remembering that correctly, but
No,
when
I don't know that. But all I'm trying to, and I'm not trying to drag Ultiworld here, by the way. They're sharing what their sources told them. That's as good as it is, right? That's fine. What I am trying to say is stuff gets out there, and even the players themselves are saying that's not accurate. I'm interested to see what happens with the Climo thing here. It'll be interesting to see. But right now, Nick said it sounds like a lot's fabricated there. We'll go with that for now until we hear more. So sit tight. I'm going to guess. And I'm not playing dumb here. I'm going to guess the made up stuff is probably the financials. Like, I don't think we're going to be surprised to not find Climo at Discraft. Like that's in my mind. I used to say where there's smoke, there's fire, or yeah, that's the right way to say it. I think that's probably still accurate here, but all right, we've talked a lot. Josh, where do you
yeah,
go?
so Jefferson, I like, first of all, so thanks for joining us. We
Appreciate it.
started talking about your channel. I want to come back to that.
Let's go.
What's your future plans with this? I mean, you're kind of grinding it out. You talked about continuing to pump videos. Things have evolved over the years, which may continue to happen. Just like as you sit here, literally, what are you like? What's your dreams? What's the future? What are you doing in disc golf?
Man, I'm like a day by day planning person. That was the best part about living in a minivan.
So what's your plan on Wednesday then?
Wednesday, I'm gonna add the podcast.
That's
All
2
right,
days
there
out.
you go. There you go.
Yeah. No, I mean, obviously, we have the base that we set for last season. I think we're going to continue that. So it was like Monday would be your recap video. Tuesday would probably be off. Wednesday was like a practice round sort of video. So like Ezra and Gossage would post theirs, Ricky would post theirs. So what I like to do is you take all of the whatever they said, like, oh, this is a change. Oh, this is different. Oh, I like this. And I would just mash that up with a little bit of course change or tournament prep. So like Wednesday's our tournament prep. Thursday will be the press conference mashup where we take what I view as like the important parts of the storytelling of the actual tournament itself. Will be like a 15-minute compilation of back and forth of the idea. And then Friday, you get This Week in Disc Golf. We did last year, we did daily round recaps of kind of what happened during the event, but that was more, we were at the event seeing more things, and that was kind of where the titles were more drawn out of getting talked on. And then I don't know if I want to go through all that again, because I don't know if we're going to be on tour for most of it. I mean, probably majority of it, just the things that are close to us. So it's just harder to get all that information unless pros are keep telling us stuff. But the cool part about our videos in the beginning was you saw the actual videos that we were recording. So you'd see our process was we'd get on hole 1, we'd record a card, wait on hole 2 for another one, follow them out. So all those people were getting attention. So it kind of is a bummer that we're not going to be able to do that as much. But other than that, the videos seem to be, they're going to probably be the same.
Got it. So you continue to invest in the channel, continue to grow it, see where it goes, react to whatever's happening.
Is this your main source of income? And I know that's like a weird question to ask people, but disc golf's one of those things where is this your main job or do you have another job?
Well, I'm very privileged to just graduate and my parents still let me live in their house with no rent. I have my college loans and other things to pay for, but I don't really have a whole lot of expenses. So I would say yes, but I don't take a single dollar from Disc Golf World. That is me and Swiss don't take anything from that. It goes right back into the channel of whatever we lived on the tour. So it was like gas, whatever, food, all that. So yes, it's my job. I have another YouTube that I kind of like get a couple dollars here and there that like help out. But, other than that,
like
yeah,
a secret YouTube? No,
no, it's another disc golf one. It's just
Okay.
not. It's not.
You can say it. You can say it if you want.
Bogey!
Yeah, it's not like if you go over there and don't be. I was once told to not say certain words in videos from someone, so I took that as like I'm gonna be really overtly say swear words on this channel,
Oh,
and
okay.
That's why I don't like advocate for it as much, but it's just like my like be creative, go have fun, don't
It's a
worry about it.
PG-13 channel.
Yeah, it's definitely NC-17, but yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
NC.
You had posted on Instagram recently talking about, and I think this was you, correct me if I'm wrong, but asking players for info on gas money, travel expenses, stuff like that. Did you get anyone hit you up about what the average? Can you share any numbers here? Or are you waiting to? Obviously, you can do that in your own video. I don't want to pry and kill.
It's got a video that came out an hour ago.
Yeah, I would say it's in that video. All the people wanted to stay anonymous, which is totally cool. But I would say the average we found is like $3,000 per month on expenses, and that only I asked because in Simon's video he said that the expenses on tour weren't as much, and I just felt like I was hearing that was not the case. So I wanted to just provide at least a little bit of evidence, so I wasn't like, "Hey, this isn't true." It was more like, there might not be a lot of expenses, but $3,000 a month that you have to spend on tours is kind of a lot of money.
Yes, so that's actually very, very similar to what little touring that I did. I was obviously fortunate to stay with friends at Airbnbs and stuff like that, which made life cheaper. But I had always kind of averaged out to where if I'm going to a tour event, I'm, after entry fee and everything like that, it's very, very easy to spend $1,000 throughout the week. And let's say you have 3 of those a month, then there you go. There's your $3,000. It's not it's not a glamorous lifestyle in regards to that.
And I feel like a lot of that gets lost because I talk to so many fans at events where they think that pros are raking in. Like I get told all the time that pros are millionaires. I'm like, where are you ever hearing that? Because these guys sometimes don't have money to get to the next tournament, I'm hearing, or they have to spend the dollar menu just to make sure they have a meal. So that's more what like I said, I want to try to share that to light.
That because, being said, and this is not my time to try to pick a fight with Drew Gibson, but I think he was being interviewed by Brody, or he did his own video, or a little bit of both, talking about flying out to USDGC. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Where it's like the whole money thing. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, don't play the Monday qualifier and you would have made some money. Like, earn your spot besides flying out a week early to play a Monday qualifier and have 5 extra nights at an Airbnb or hotel. Like, that's 5 extra days of rental and hotel and food. Like, that's a lot. If you just earned your spot, like, don't use that event. Like, go fly to Portland and play the event and tell me how much you lost. I don't know. But I think that event was not a good comparison for that. So
I gotcha. I don't know exactly what you're remembering, but yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if he flew early to get his practice rounds in,
he was talking about, what did he get? 3rd place, 5th place, 6th place? He got something pretty, 8th, 10th? Something.
Yeah.
And he says,
at USDGC this year?
Yeah. And he's saying how he lost money. And my perspective was, if you didn't fly out, now granted he did, and maybe his point is that it should still make him money to do it this way, but like, that's not everybody. Everybody's not having to go out 5 days early and have the 5 extra hotels, 5 rentals, 5 meals, and try to qualify. Like, that's not every event. So anyways, I just didn't feel like that was a good event.
So I just to kind of, we're going to keep chirping away because that's what we're good at here. So Jefferson, are you good to stay with us and chat with some of these things?
Totally, yeah.
Okay. I mean, you said you live and breathe disc golf, so I guess you're in it. And so for the rest of the guys
than Jefferson,
I would say the rest of the guys on the show, I want to hear some of Jefferson's opinions, and obviously you share what you want.
We'll let him go first.
Yeah, but like, so since we're on it, and I have some other topics, I'm going to move us to a few other totally different topics in a moment. Well, they're not totally different, but like, we're going to be a little more structured. But on this point, like, you just put a video out where, Simon Lizotte and Drew Gibson on the couch kind of talking, and you just elaborated on it. And then Matt just had an opinion that kind of contrasts that. Plus, we're hearing a lot of pressures of players in 2025. Like, can some of them make the cut? Sponsorship deals maybe getting tighter. Just like, people can go and listen to your videos for your opinions, but since you're on our show, I'm going to ask you, like, what is your take on this? Like, is it too tight for these players? Is it more expensive, to your point, not Simon's point? And where should that money come from? Or is it just a sign of the times? Just like, what's your like true raw opinion on like what's happening in the industry and like, who should do something about it?
I guess I can't say I know who needs to do something about it. I just see the issues that I believe are issues, and I talk about them because I think the biggest problem is a lot of people don't even know half the stuff. Like the first time we said a lot of players have to pay for their own entry fee and their own tour card. People were, it's like, no, that's like common. Like all the people flying to Europe, most of them pay for that flight. That's not coming from sponsors. Like that seems to me like that seems insane. And it seems the only way to from that perspective to change that is the companies aren't going to listen to the pros, right? I mean, man, there's so much. Man, I hate.
Well,
this
I don't,
just
you
sometimes.
you
Yeah,
decide what you want to share.
yeah,
But we
I
want
know.
This is
if you're holding back for our benefit, don't. I want to hear what you're thinking.
It feels like right now, and you're gonna like this as this off season gets crazy. Swiss and I made a big video saying the bad side of disc golf because we had someone come on us and had like a 2-hour phone call that worked in the industry, and I no longer do. And they were sharing all of that inside stuff that we'd never hear about. How some like pros in their contracts had things where they were supposed to have practice rounds being recorded and posted that the companies just decided, nah, we don't see the value in doing that, but it was in writing where it's like that was supposed to help your player. And it's like, so it seems like, so the point of not paying for entry fees, flights, or anything like that, what do the sponsors do? And maybe that's not what they're supposed to be doing, but it just feels like if we're going to be all in on disc golf, like my life is disc golf, and I felt like everybody else doing this whose life was in disc golf. So it felt like we should be doing the at most for the pros because their job is, I always believe, to be the best disc golfer they possibly can. How are they supposed to do that when they're supposed to be their PR manager, their social media manager, their whatever else, because they're supposed to be making a side income? This was supposed to be their job. This was supposed to be whatever. And then along to that, we're about to see, and we're being told, and you're going to see this all roll out. I'm sure hopefully the pro spread talk about it, of salaries just being cut because they don't see the value where they were thought they were getting guaranteed money at the beginning of a time, maybe invested themselves with an RV because they wanted to live a little bit cheaper. Because they felt secure. Where all of a sudden that money is no longer guaranteed, and they're saying, actually, you're going to get 50% of this. How are they supposed to be the best disc golfer? How are they supposed to live on tour? How are they supposed to focus on all the things? And again, pay for all the other things. And all of a sudden, we can talk about how them being whatever top 15, top 10 talent. But all of a sudden they flipped to top 50 and now they're not getting cash. Now they're not doing this. Now all of a sudden they had these bills that were all being stacked up. They were feeling fine about and they weren't worrying about. Now it's they needed to take cash and they need to do all this thing just to have not stress in their life.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we could talk about this for hours on hours, especially when it comes to sponsorships, lower tier sponsorships versus, you have your star team with Innova, you have your elite team with Discraft. So those players, let's say, I think last week I said there was 12 or 13 players on the elite team. You can go back. I hate the solo screen. You can, yeah, there you go. I've always said, I feel like I'm just talking to myself and I'm like, I want to see everyone, especially because it's a broad subject, but take your elite team players, and that's who Discraft is banking on to get the best ROI out of, because you got the $1 Million Man with Paul Macbeth, and then everyone else, we don't know what they're making, but you got to assume that Paige Pierce is probably making a substantial amount of money, and all these other players. And then you have your Corey Ellis's, who flew out to Europe. Who knows if it was paid by Discraft or not, but then he ended up winning the European Open. And it's like, okay, how much did Discraft make on that ROI when they gave him the force and stuff like that? Are they making that money back that they're putting into Corey right now? So I'm a Team Discraft sponsored player. I have been for a number of years now. I would be a fool to think that any of my entry fees were going to get paid for by Discraft right now, because I'm not a top caliber player. If I win an A tier, part of my bonus structure is that my A tier does get covered. And I think that might be first, second, and third place. I forget exactly what my contract says, but I do have that in my contract to where that's how I'll get some money back. But when it comes to B tier, C tiers, most A tiers, because obviously I'm not winning every single one of them, that's out of pocket. All Pro Tour events out of pocket, majors out of pocket. But I also never once thought that I was at a point where I could go to Discraft and say, hey, you need to start paying for these things so I can be out on the road a little bit more. I've got a decent social media following. I think if I was still much more involved as a player, and then also a little bit more involved in disc golf, social content, media, and everything like that. But I spent the last year working on a property where I wanted to devote pretty much all my time to that. So my social media following has kind of shrunk because I'm not out on the road. I'm not meeting all these new people. But even when my social media was growing and things like disc golf's hard to make money in. But one of the best ways that, like, one of the coolest things that I ever did was in Virginia Beach. I hosted a 2-disc challenge. Everyone got a buzz and a zone, and they brought their own putter. That was the players pack, was a buzz and a zone. I did it for $45 a person because I taught a clinic afterwards. And in the 4 hours that I was out in Virginia Beach, I had made $2,500 to $3,000 or whatever. And that was incredible because I was like, that was literally one of the most fun things I've ever done in disc golf. It was one of the most rewarding when it came to how happy people were at the end of it, how fun it was just hanging out with everyone out there. We don't see a ton of people doing stuff like that right now. Like, they need to be going out teaching clinics right now, because there's less than 5 people in disc golf, or maybe less than 10 people in disc golf who actually deserve to make top dollar. You've got your Pauls, you've got your Simons, you've got your Rickies, you've got your Gannons, who's very, very much on pace. He doesn't have the world championships yet, but more than likely he will. But everyone else take 11 through 90. And honest to goodness, none of their ROIs are worth big money for top manufacturers. None of them.
That's curious, Jefferson. I mean, do you like agree with all that? I'm not teeing this up as a debate, but like, do you have a reaction? Because I feel like there's a little bit of a contrast from what I heard to Nick and Jefferson.
I will say I mean, I don't. This is the problem too. When people talk to me, they start phone calls with off the record. Then it's like an hour phone call. I don't know when. So no, you can say this, you can say that.
So, hey, we're on the record here, by the way.
We are on the record right now.
I will say, when you're talking about big money and someone that you talked about, oh man, it's just some people that they don't make nearly as much that they're saying, and they're like I said, they're being again. Things are gonna get shaken up.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, like it's you expressed your perspective well, Jefferson. So like I think I appreciate it. I don't think I see it exactly the same, but that's an interesting question. Like meaning I don't like disagree with your perspective, but it's more like I'm not sure. Which actually begs the question of so like what are this is actually a slightly different topic, but there's a segue. What are sponsors looking for in players? Nick, you simply said ROI, right, as an acronym for a return on investment.
Yeah.
Like, is that the thing because they're running a business? And if so, like, how do they get the ROI? And it's definitely an equation, right, Jefferson? So part of it is they have to pay the player or have a structure that compensates or whatever. So that what? This is my point. We talked about this before on the show. So that what? They can be like, they can win all their events? Because like that's obviously like the best case scenario. But for anybody who's
the number
not
one scenario,
right?
Yeah.
Well, right. But there are only like 5 to 10 people in that bucket. Now, by the way, there could be 5 or 10 more who could be in that bucket, and that's a question, right? Because like if they were invested in differently, if they were on the tour, they had, to your point, Jefferson, they didn't have to think about media and content, right? Like so I understand that that's part of the whole like challenge is like that. But I'm actually curious, like what else are sponsors looking for if you're not just trying to buy the top 5 players? Because that's the thing. Like, what are they looking for? It's like storytelling. Are they looking for the person to be running clinics? Are they looking for media? Like, what is that equation, and is it the right equation? And again, maybe the immaturity of some of our contracts is where the stress actually comes, because to your point, it appears to be guaranteed, but it's not, and that's a contract problem, right? Mm-hmm. It may not be an equation problem because maybe the manufacturer is like, no, this is the way it works. I need this kind of ROI. But if it's not clear, we have problems. Nick, you may have some thoughts, but Jefferson,
I was just about to say, I want to answer after Jefferson, but I do want to answer this question.
So the return, like the ROI, definitely, right? And I feel like the whole point of we're trying to just sign good players and do good things is there, but I'm just trying to think of what the sponsors do. And maybe I just don't know this perspective as much because I'm not a sponsored player, but I don't see that extra bonus. Besides like MVP, they have a media guy at the events, recording practice rounds, recording it there. But I'm trying to think. I know Discraft does at some of their events, and maybe other sometimes, but for majority of the tournaments, there's like no media from the sponsors being done. There's no representation. So what are you're literally expecting players to just do that for you? Is that's
well, I don't. But that's a question. So like, I'm not pushing back, but I want to ask, like, what is the a business that's being run well is looking at ROI. So even in this case, Jefferson, like if they're not out there doing media, in theory, now maybe they're doing bad business practices, and that may be the point. But in theory, they're not out there doing media, additional media covering their players because they don't see the ROI. Mm-hmm. Right? That's why. Now maybe they're missing an opportunity. That would be a business debate. And we're like, well, honestly, they should, because they would, lift their players, and when they lift their players, they would lift their brand. And maybe that's kind of the whole point, is we wish they were investing more from that angle. But if they can, and this is a cynical take, if they can, quote unquote, for free, right, cost them nothing, and say, players, you need to promote our brand, right? Like you need to be out there and doing.
Well, that's not
media,
free, to be clear. That's them, like they're paying that player.
Well, but are they paying them enough for that? And that's why
that could be the question.
That part
but
of
that
the
can be the
contract
question.
in the sense of like, you're $50,000 a year that includes in it. So
you could say maybe it doesn't pay enough,
Yeah.
but to your point, Josh, it's not necessarily free. Like they're saying, for instance, like my kids are on Team Innova. One of them won a world champion. Two, I always do. I always talk about my kid. Like they're getting free. Then you could say like they're getting free out of me, like having to create and promote and do social media for him. But like I see the back end what he gets as well. And it's like, you have to decide, and I'm not the player, but I'm the parent of the player. You have to decide, is it worth it? And that's where I think players are going to have to do that. But what are the players' other option? To say, okay, I'm not going to take any sponsorship.
So this is where, I think there's that. Yes, I think, excuse me, I just ripped my headphone out. Sorry. I think one of the best ROIs you can get is someone that consistently goes and wins tournaments. Like Gannon going over to Discmania this year and just winning 9 Elite Series and major events this year is huge for Discmania. Obviously, that's just it's incredible. But one of the other things is like, okay, if you're not a player like Gannon who's going to go out and win a ton of tournaments every single year, if you're not banking on that, you do have to be the kind of person that does these clinics because you want to create more fan base for yourself to where those people, the second Discraft comes out, and I'm using Discraft as an example because I'm sponsored by them, but the second Discraft comes out with Nick Carl stamped discs, I need to be involved with the fan culture or the local culture of wherever I am so that when I do host these challenges, the 2 disc challenges or clinics, people want to come out to them. Yes, does that mean more money for me? Of course it does. But at the same time, you build up that fan base. People really get to know who you are. That's what a ton of these players that are at that, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, those spots keep going down and down and down. Because other than that, if anything, you should be in some sort of sense. Now, don't get me wrong. I know contracts are definitely not what, like some people's contracts, I think are so bad that I wouldn't even want to talk about it publicly. But at the same time, they put themselves in that position. But they should also be thankful that a company like some of these major manufacturers are even willing to sponsor them. And I say that because when I made a lead card at Waco and Discraft posted about it and Resistance Discs posted about it, because I did something good, they saw that and was like, hey, congrats, Nick Carl, let's promote this. And then all of a sudden I went from 3,000 followers on Instagram to 5,000, what it felt like overnight. And that was huge for me, myself, and I, because, that was increasing my, not fandom or stardom in the sport. Yeah, my brand. Essentially. That was helping out my brand because I'm a sponsored player by Discraft. I did something good and they rewarded me with it. And something that did not cost them any extra money. And yeah, of course, a business is going to want, to, I guess, pay someone the least amount and try to get the most out of it. Don't get me wrong. I understand how businesses work, but I also think that there is a lot of, and this might step on some people's toes, I think there's a stupid, almost a disgusting amount of entitlement in the sport right now that everyone thinks they are worth way more than honest to goodness what they are. And
see that point, I'm not going to put any words in your mouth. Jefferson, I hear you taking a slightly different angle.
Josh is the moderator. This is awesome.
Yeah, well, I am. And like we don't have to call it a
put us
debate,
3 back
but
up.
our show is staggered stance. And literally, like I don't know where I sit on this, but Jefferson, like I'll let you react to this, but you kind of said like, something about like it's crazy, right? That these entry fees aren't paid for. Like in my presumption is in that statement is like, of course the sponsor should be like covering this stuff, and you're also reacting to fairly to the broader, newer disc golf world of people who are like they're blown away as they enter the sport in the last couple of years and start consuming pro content and they find out these things. And so like you're kind of saying, yeah, there's a general assumption that these people are quote unquote. I'm saying this, that they're underpaid, right? Or they're undercompensated or they're undercontracted. And that's just kind of what I'm hearing, which is interesting. I'm probably more inclined to take Nick's stance, but I actually think I'm trying to keep an open mind on this because those of us who've been in the sport for 2 decades, that I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing. We're holding on to some legacy, quote unquote, entitlement, Nick, right? Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Can I, Jefferson, I don't want to cut you off. If you have something, please share it right after. But I almost want to make a quick comparison, like apples to oranges, and people might say that it is. But if you take the sport of golf, and I had just played an indoor simulator with Simon and Drew when I was up in Massachusetts during Thanksgiving. Also, Drew is a filthy golfer. Hits it all of 320 yards. It's stupidly impressive, actually. And I love watching good players play golf. I think that's one of the most enjoyable things in the world. But let's say, and I think he made this comparison. I don't want to throw words in Drew's mouth. And I think he made this where a scratch golfer is like 1,000 rated pro. Okay. A lot of people, like, if I really worked hard, I could potentially get to be a scratch golfer. Just like I worked really hard in disc golf and I got to be 1,000 rated. Now, I'm not going out to pro tour events and winning. Okay, it would take
lead cards at Waco though.
It would take three apps. It would take 54 holes of perfection from me to win Waco, and that, honest to goodness, is the only course that I would be able to win on because of how much of a disadvantage I have when it comes to distance. But a shorter course like Waco, it would take 3 immaculate rounds from me to even sniff a top 5, top 10 finish, winning in that regards. So, but we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sponsored players who are just below 1,000 rated, maybe just above 1,000 rated. Like, we have so many sponsored people in disc golf. It's insane. Almost everyone you talk to nowadays, even amateurs, are sponsored in some sort of the word, but a lot of them by manufacturers, whether it's on the tour team or it's on the underground team or street team, whatever. If I'm a scratch golfer, I can go out, I can play, I can beat all my friends. I'm not going to win a PGA Tour event. I'm not getting sponsored by anyone. Even if you're a scratch golfer, you could be probably one of the best players in Massachusetts as a golfer and not even come close to winning anything on the tour, and you won't be sponsored. And that's a sport that has millions and millions and millions of dollars going in and out of it compared to disc golf, where we don't have that much going in and out. Nothing compared to golf. But that's where disc golf has always been very, very inclusive. It's always been I've always thought one of the wildest things about disc golf, and I'm very grateful for it with how my life turned out, is how accessible we are to professionals. I can stand 5 feet away as Simon Lizotte is practice putting, and I can have a quick conversation with him. If I'm going to an NBA game, I could be sitting courtside and not even get a nod from Jason Tatum if I tried to say hello to him, or a handshake, or a 10-minute conversation. That's not happening. That's where the professionalism, like, you could be the best Division I player in the world, get to the NBA, Michael Jordan's brand may never sponsor you. You may get some average Adidas deal. I'm not going to throw names out there because I was just about to, but I'm not going to do that. But you take professional athletes, some of them the best at what they do, and they don't even have great sponsorships because of how much harder it is to get sponsored.
But whose fault is that, though? Whose fault is that? And I don't even see it as a fault issue. My point is, like, go back to like Prodigy Street Team. I've always kind of made fun of it. It's just what it is. People want to be sponsored. Oh, you can be on the street team, or Lone Star, whatever that Ranger team was, or whatever. Like, if players want to be sponsored, these manufacturers are like, this is fantastic. They're coming to us. They're begging. They're paying us. They're paying us. They have to buy our product. Like, they love it. And all I'm trying to say is that's not the manufacturer's fault. I think the players, to your point, Nick, some of them, yes, are sponsored, but that's because the manufacturers said this is worth it to them. The players, I think, are underselling themselves. And I see Jefferson nodding there. I think that's where the issue comes, is like, they're coming in and being like, yeah, I'll do that for $3,000 a month. And it's kind of like, well, maybe they shouldn't be, or maybe they should be. Like, I
think there are plenty of players who will continue to undersell themselves. Don't get me wrong. Now, there are also plenty of players out there who very much oversell themselves. And
but the manufacturers buy it. That's their own fault.
No, well, that's what I'm saying. Watch what happens in 2025. All those players who are trying to oversell themselves and think they're worth what they're getting. See you later. We're about to see a lot more open bags, more than likely, or we're going to see a lot of small-time players. And I say small-time in the kindest way of, like, they're way better at disc golf than I'll ever be. But I say small kind when we are talking about the tour. And those players are going to get dropped. They're going to be making pennies on the dollar, essentially. And that's where...
That'll do, my friends.
Yeah. Disc golf's in a weird spot right now. I'll just say that.
Yeah. Any reactions that you want to add before I move us to a few other topics?
I feel like...
Feel free.
Yeah, I understand. Like, I totally understand where it comes from, like overselling people and underselling, and so man, it's like I said, it's hard.
You don't have to agree with one thing we've said.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's just I understand. It's just like I said, there was an employee of a company that like leaked all of the salaries to me, and I have a spreadsheet of everything with royalty sales, and it makes me feel really dirty sometimes that we're expecting players to live 9 months in their minivan for.
But are we expecting them to, or did they choose to do that?
They choose to do that, but if we're just gonna sit here and be okay with that, and we're gonna,
I don't know. This is that whole McDonald's minimum wage thing where it's like we should pay them more. And I'm going, you don't have to work at McDonald's, and I've got to be careful. I'm getting in a little bit of politics here, but my point is like,
I could go off.
Yeah, but my point is like, they shouldn't take that deal unless they were told something else that didn't actually happen, and that is a case that I've heard of too. So maybe that's what you're kind of.
I've also heard that sometimes players and their agents don't have a good relationship on relaying information,
There
and
you
then
go.
all of a sudden your name is signed, and now you're
Yes.
expecting that
All
as
right.
well. And
Yeah.
No,
we
let's keep
agree.
it going,
Hey,
Matt. Don't even. That'll do, my friends. This
No,
is
that's
we're
all right.
hot right now.
Yeah, but I think we want to move to a few other things. But I will say, Jefferson, you've made your point. I actually think a lot of people agree with that. And even Matt and Nick, I know you're like knee-jerk reaction, and I'm kind of quote unquote moderating here, right? But I think really there is a fair perspective to take, to be like, you're saying, should they take the deal? But at the same time, why, to Jefferson's point, why can't we put leverage back on the manufacturers and say, no, like, we want a tour and we want these players out there. And if you've got the margins, can you not at least cover their expenses and stick to a contract? Right? Like, I can kind of see there's some tension. This is why in the history of the world there are things like labor unions, et cetera. Right? I'm not saying there's a union case here, but it's the same idea, right? Of saying, look, we're agreeing to work in this industry because everybody wants the product, which is watching the players. And if everybody wants the product, then can all the people who want the product be okay with paying a price that ensures that the players are taken care of, whatever that line is, right? And I think that's the case. I don't know, Jefferson, if I'm stating it well, but like that's part of the challenge of like I understand what you're both saying on both sides of that, but like there's some tension there. That's interesting.
We also kind of have to have the realization of, and we can all want players to get more paid. Like, don't get me wrong. I think that's a very, very valid point. But at the same time, if we're hoping that players get paid more, just wait for the consumer to have to pay more for discs. Wait for the consumer to have to pay more to get into Pro Tour events. You know, people complain about events costing $10 or $15 or parking costing $10 to get into somewhere. And it's like, okay, we want all these great things. We want to keep up and up and up and up and up. Okay, prices are going to go up. You know, an ESP disc right now, if you go on discraft.com, it's $20. Now we want to pay $100,000 a year to every single Elite Series member that might not even be worth $100,000 a year. Okay, that disc just turned from $20 to $24 because I got to justify it somehow, and that's where, you know, we get, you know, it's a touchy subject.
I'll join the chat here.
Whoa.
Here's my opinion. Whoa, I know I haven't said much today.
Here, dude. Working on
It's
the
like
Excel.
it's like Evan when he was in the green room all during these interviews, and I was like, oh, Evan's
Here's the
back.
thing.
Ben's
It's like,
working on expo sales in the background during the show.
No. Here's the thing. Like, I've always been the intern, and now Matt has control of the show. And I used to love just like being able to put like the screen up on you guys and just kind of like speak when I wanted to. So I don't really. Now I'm on, and so like I'm still adjusting. But here's my thing, and I know it's like different for everyone, but I personally think like pros, for money wise, should just get more creative. And by that I mean, if you're a decent pro, like, yes, get your manufacturer sponsorship or whatever, get money, but reach out to a sunglasses company, say, I'll give me $500 a month and I'll wear your sunglasses. This is how many views on YouTube, or this is how, if I get on Jomas, this is how many. Reach out to a shoe company, reach out to a clothing company, stuff like that. I feel like there's a lot of kind of just, you know, your manufacturer is your only sponsor, and then whatever money you get from that is it. And I know there's bad companies and stuff like that, but I don't know. I just think pros could get a little more creative, start a podcast and stuff like that. If they are struggling on the tour, you know, I think that if they want to stay on tour, they can just get a little more creative. That's all.
Yeah, players got to hustle. We're in
you
disc
gotta
golf
hustle
right now. Yeah, players have to hustle, and they have to realize they gotta hustle. That's the only way up and comers
outside of disc golf too, though. Like outside of practicing
100%.
their craft.
Yeah, but they also don't get me wrong. You can talk to any professional athlete compared to disc golf professional athletes, and majority of disc golfers do not train like professional athletes should be training. You know, I take it something as simple as, you know, I'm very good friends with Dylan Cease, and Dylan is in workout mode right now, to where he's working out every single day. He does yoga every single day. And he's also doing mind strength training exercise. He's visualizing, you know, this is something that he's been telling me to do with the business at Olympus, is visualize how you envision and how you want Olympus to go. Put that visualization, into, you know, product. And then here we go. Now we can kind of do these things. The majority of disc golfers, they're practice, their training, everything like that is go to the gym for 30 minutes a day, get stretched out, do a couple workouts, and then go to the course, play a couple rounds, maybe do a little bit of field work. But when you actually look at professional athletes and what they are doing in their sport, they are treating it straight up like it's a 12-hour day job, if not more. They're eating healthy. And don't get me wrong, it's really hard to eat very healthy. It's very expensive to eat very healthy. Some players can't afford to actually eat the way that they should be eating. And don't get me wrong, I am not the healthiest dude in the world. If I could go to Chipotle twice a day, every single day, I would happily do that. But it is not a well-balanced meal. It's just what I really enjoy. But
we're talking about diets now. I'm getting confused.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, like just kind of going up, like when we're talking about disc golfers hustling and everything like that, like there are so many disc golfers out there who are just trying to go out and play events and make a name for themselves when it's just never going to happen. They're going to sit in 30th, 40th, 50th place every single event because of that.
Well, I hope people who listen to the show or watch this live really like wrestle with the varying perspectives we've shared. I think there's some intriguing things. And this is not just a shallow debate. This is like part of the future of the pro tour scene. Like Jefferson, like you share some perspectives. Everybody's waiting to see what 2025 is going to come about. There will be tension, both for the manufacturers and the players. So like have an opinion and express it. Like there's real things happening here, which is why we're debating it.
Can I move a topic that wasn't on the spreadsheet, but I wanna bring it up, which is I have a source, right? We're going back to that, and they will stay anonymous, but I'm hearing that players, I don't know if I'm gonna be as like generic, but as forward as I can be. They are not going to be allowed to play any other event on a tour weekend without an exemption. Meaning, if there's a pro tour event.
Are you talking about tour card holders?
Tour card holders.
Wow, that's crazy.
Tour card holders will not, whether they're signing something going into the season or I'm again not fully sure on the details of how that's being agreed on, but will not be able to play other events without an exemption of sorts. I'm making up the word exemption, but the point is like it would have to be like approved. You can't just be like, hey, I'm going to go play this A tier while a pro tour event's going on. If you're a tour card holder. I'm telling you, I just heard this.
I do not have any sources, so I'm just like saying, you know what that sounds like? That sounds like the Live Disc Golf PGA like situation. Remember when they were like shutting it down and being like, sorry, you cannot play in those events. And there was a big push at the upper level, right? That was interesting. And by the way, I don't know anything about that.
Wait, are you saying during the same weekend, like, or if it's like a break week, they can't play the local A tier at
if there's
the
a pro
tour
whatever event, is my understanding. But here's the deal: I only dug into this so far. They talked to me, and I started asking a few questions. I didn't call up Jeff Spring. I'll put it that way. I wouldn't be surprised if Jeff reached out to me after this, like, what are you doing, bro?
John said, yeah.
But Jeff, we can talk about it, but it's just what I'm hearing. And I think it's really interesting and a little bit fascinating. And you would have to think,
I don't think that will happen.
What would be the purpose of that? To Josh's point,
there'd be none.
It'd be a competing tour, possibly.
No, yeah, I mean, Ben, the only reason would be competition.
Oh, if it's a competing tour,
let's say I'm on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. Let's say I'm a tour
Steve
card
Dodge
holder.
says he's announcing future disc golf on like Thursday.
Just future disc golf or whatever.
Future disc golf. Yeah. Wow.
The way we
there's
can
no
look at
way
this
he's competing with his own tour.
The one that he created. Yeah, it's not his anymore. Yeah, he might miss it, so he's got to start up his own. But yeah, if I'm a tour card member, and I'm sure if I ask the Pro Tour and say, hey, I don't want to travel out to the West Coast, do you mind if I play local A tier? I can't imagine that the Pro Tour is going to be like, oh my God, no. But if the Disc Golf Expo Tour started up, and let's say they're the Live Tour, and I was like, hey, they're trying to get me out to their event, that's when the Pro Tour would be like, yeah, no, absolutely not. That's what I'm assuming is the case for it.
That makes sense. If there was another tour, hypothetically, like a Live Golf, I guess they're just trying to protect their players, protect their revenue, and stuff like that. That makes more sense. I was thinking more of like a B tier, like they can't play Welcome to the Jungle.
I can see.
Well, I was gonna say, so really quick, just like
chime in, Jefferson.
Nick can finish his point.
No. You were
the second that Live Golf came about, everyone asked, when's that going to happen in disc golf? When's the opposing disc golf tour going to happen? The second Live got announced, that was on everyone's mind, is what billionaire is going to come into the sport and start that? Go ahead.
It just seems that even if there was this Live Golf and that had any sort of extra money, why would we just, as we're talking about how these players are making no money, why would we limit these people making any sort of money? It's not like all your players aren't going to go. We have 50 dope players here getting media attention, showing whatever, doing whatever for one event. Why
Well,
is that a
I
problem?
agree with you, except that I'm going to exaggerate the point. Imagine there's literally a competing tour. That would be an existential threat to the pro tour, right?
Yeah.
Like that would be the thing. And Jefferson, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but I mean like purely business. Now to your point, like, yeah, it'd be crazy if you have some player who's like, it's closer here. I'm not driving to California. I'm playing this event this weekend where I can win $1,000, right? So like, there's way too much here we don't know about, but that's why, right? If they literally could imagine an upstart tour, the world tour returns, right? And next thing you know, half the players are like, I'm going over here. That would be a big problem for
Yeah, because they're offering more money. Yeah, so I can see that happening, and I understand it through business wise. That you have to protect your business and the players, but I also understand that like if that were a thing, it would ruffle a lot of feathers. So I feel like it's a tough double-edged sword that like the higher you go in business, you have to like those are some things you have to make. I mean, the Pro Tour obviously is I'd want to say like a multi-million-dollar company. I don't really know specifically, but yeah, I guess.
Yeah. It's technically a billion-dollar company.
Like market-wise, yeah, I understand. But I'm just saying, like, I can see like why they would have to do that if there was a legitimate threat, like a Live Golf, not some like I make a Orbeez tour sponsored by Orbeez, and like the players have to play with Orbeez in their socks, and like I'll give them like 10 grand. I don't know.
Yeah.
Lotion on their hands.
Yeah, stuff like
that.
That's what I'm
trying
to say. Just like a
stupid disc golf tour.
Yeah.
So I just mentioned that. Go ahead, Jefferson.
I don't want to overstep on your source, but did they say just tour cards, or like they had to be holding a tour card, or is
tour
it like
card holders?
So the players can just not buy a tour card. And
so I got to be careful too, Jefferson, when I say.
Big Jeff.
Here's what here. Okay, so this is interesting. Because here's the deal. I didn't dig into this very far, so this is just talk fodder right now. But the person who's talking to me said that there are players that are holding back right now on purchasing their tour card.
I've heard a lot about that.
It's
also expensive.
Did you just say you heard some of that?
I've heard people not purchasing tour cards, but that was because I heard that Nick, did you have a tour card? I don't know.
No, gosh, no.
Okay. No. I was told that a lot of people are looking back at the benefits that they're getting and realizing maybe there isn't so much benefits that you're even getting for the $1,000 that you're purchasing.
I mean, you got to think the biggest benefit is getting guaranteed access into signing up for the event, right?
And if all the players don't sign up, seems like they'll pretty much get in, no?
Yes, exactly. That's why I've looked at it to where, I don't know the exact specifics of a tour card, but I know one of them was like X amount of dollars went to parking lot renovations for certain places. But if you actually span that out over 80 players that sign up for the 26 tournaments that are happening, it's like, great. Everyone complains about Maple Hills parking lot every single year, especially when it rains. Okay, give them $1,000. And you want to know what that $1,000 is going to do for that parking lot? Jack.
Two trees.
Crap. Yeah. I'll go PG-13 real quick, but it's going to do jack shit for the parking lot. You're going to get 12 yards of gravel, and that's not going to get you anything. And so, yes, when it does come to what are the exact amenities that is really makes a tour card worth it, I can't speak on it because I don't know exactly what that entails.
So I mean, again, the conversation was not in passing, but it was a simple conversation about, hey, this is stuff that's going on. Are you familiar with this? And I said, not really. Would you care to shed some light? And so it sounded pretty interesting, but I do want to say I'm not fabricating anything here, to Nick's point earlier. I'm simply saying this is at the very least a conversation that is happening. Now, if it ends up being something, maybe the Pro Tour is like, hey, we were navigating that and we decided not to. Maybe there's enough voices from the tour players to say they don't want that, and maybe the tour listens. But there's a possibility that some of this does end up happening, and maybe with the Pro Tour being able to share their perspective, if and when they announce this, maybe there will be some reason to say, oh, I can see how that makes sense. But at this point, it's just a conversation.
Yeah, there's two interesting parts of that story. It's the Pro Tour, like, can they enforce a rule like that? What does that mean for players? That's weird. The other side is like, why the heck would they even think about it? Which makes you wonder, like, what else is happening in the ecosystem? I don't know.
I started the Orbeez tour.
What do you, Josh? What do you mean? Why would they even think about it? I'm just curious to say.
No,
like,
I'm
what,
just
what do you
saying,
mean
like
by
the
that?
point I already made, which is the only reason they think about that is if they're
It's 'cause
worried
something's
about players
happening.
playing somewhere else.
Yeah.
I got
Otherwise, they
Something's
don't
already
ever
in
like.
the works.
But it
That's
could be
never
very
even been a
forward-thinking.
conversation for us.
It could just be like a forward-thinking liability thing. Like, hey, 5 years down the road, maybe this starts to happen. Let's just build it in now. I don't know.
Yeah.
It
I have
also,
no
hey,
idea.
you got to
That
think. It
wouldn't be
also,
my-
We'll
it
have
also
to hit
might
up
force-
Jeff. I don't think he'll say much though.
Yeah.
Jeff will just be
But
like,
you got to
"Oh."
think. We were just talking
Don't
with
put me
Jefferson
on the
earlier about
spot.
this. It might, like we were talking about forcing the manufacturer's hand. Okay, this might force the Pro Tour's hand in the sense of, Live Golf went and paid players millions and millions and millions of dollars just to join their tour, and the PGA finally ended up doing that. Like Tiger Woods, who's one of the greatest of all time, got pennies on the dollar compared to what Phil Mickelson is making from the Live Tour. So it's where if a company came in and was like, hey, I want to throw random players out. Let's take Andrew Marweed, because I've been talking about him all night. Andrew Marweed, I'll give you 75 grand a year to play my 10 events. You got to think Andrew Marweed more
Yeah,
than
it's a
likely is
no-brainer
going
for
to take
him.
that deal because one, it's way less events. He's making a pretty good amount of money, and then he can also go play A tiers and B tiers whenever he wants. And a player like Andrew is going to win a majority of those A tiers and B tiers. So comfortability wise, yeah, that sounds like an incredible deal. Now, when you say something like that to where it's like, oh, hey, Ricky, I'll give you $1.5 million every single year to play on my tour. Ricky 100% is going to be one of those people who's like, F yeah, I'm in. Let's do it. And the Pro Tour just lost someone who's huge marketability wise for the Pro Tour. He makes all the feature cards, league cards, he wins tournaments, stuff like that. So, yeah, this might force the Pro Tour's hand to, maybe think about that a little
As a
bit
disc golf fan, if there was another league that was saying we're going to pay your players and you're going to play X amount of events and other people could still play the Pro Tour and the Pro Tour said they weren't allowed, I would be very upset as a disc golf fan.
Well, that's exactly what happened with the PGA and the Live Tour. The PGA was like, hey, if you want to go play on Live, don't bother coming to our tour events. But
But
guess
these guys
what?
aren't making no money.
What's that?
So these people ain't making no money.
No.
over
I know.
here.
I'm just saying, like, that's what could happen, though.
Yeah.
It'd be a wild shakeup. And stuff like that for a podcast would be
We'll be
awesome
here
to
to
hear
talk
about in
about it, yeah.
2025. Exactly. Like, that would be incredible for something like that to happen for us as podcasters.
Well, I have zero idea if this kind of stuff is going to happen. But what I will say is obviously a whole side of this is recreation. We enjoy the sport, but a big side of this is business, right? And there's a lot happening in the broader economy and business world that are going to put pressures that will result in some interesting outcomes. I'm not saying for better or worse, Jefferson, to your point, like there's going to be players dropped, contracts shifted. There could be competitors. There could be pressures on the Pro Tour finances, players not choosing to buy tour cards because they're expensive. Like, I'm just saying things when you ride a wave and then there's a small like deflation, there's going to be things that'll happen. And not all of them will be good. At the end of the day, I agree with the premise of like, I really mean this. I hope more players can play and make more money on the tour. So like, that's what I would like. How you come about that, I guess, is really the rub, but I don't know. Hey, are we still debating this?
I don't even know what we're debating now. At this point.
Live
it's not-
Tour.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to
We
hit
just
just a couple other topics, but I'm going to actually try, emphasis on try, to be slightly more efficient on a few of these things. You ready? I'm taking a different angle on the Climo thing. We know he's left Innova. Is this the biggest sponsor change in disc golf history?
No.
Which one's bigger?
I think Paul's is bigger.
Oh, for sure.
Paul.
Because
Everybody agrees?
Paul's in his prime, or you could say was in his prime when he went from Innova to Discraft.
Why
Paul.
wasn't Simon bigger?
I'd say
I don't
Simon's bigger
think
than
Simon was
Climo.
bigger just because of the accolades that Paul has versus Simon and what Paul is
Yeah.
still doing. Simon, don't
In
get me wrong,
different
they're both-
ways. In different ways.
So like, I
Paul
think
was
Simon's
a huge shakeup, but it
'cause-
was kind of like I said
Okay,
earlier, like one of
let
the
me-
first.
Let me ask you this then: why do you think Simon's would be bigger than Paul's?
Well, as I said, I mean, it was one of the first. Paul was one of the first to do it, and they announced his deal, and it wasn't as big of a deal as it ended up being. Like, was it a year into it? It changed to a bigger deal.
Yeah,
As
from
far as
2019 to
financially.
2020.
Yeah, as
Yes.
far as financially, it turned into a bigger deal.
Yeah.
It was a big deal because Paul was like, I don't know if the Wonder Kid's the right thing, but coming up through Innova, like he was the one, everything was a big deal with him being Innova. That's who he was. Nobody really knew him any other way. That's why it was big. The money was breakthrough, but it ended up being more breakthrough later.
Yeah.
I feel like Simon's, I know we only have leaky leakers and speculation on this, But Simon's deal right up front was just like powerhouse. And he was someone who had the fandom, if you will. It had to be close. Maybe I'm wrong. But I feel
I see what you mean from the two different angles of it, but at the same time, I look at it as, okay, Paul went from Innova in the height of his career in the sense of like
Simon built Discmania pretty much. I mean, don't take away from UC, but my point is like Discmania was riding on Simon's shoulders.
Simon and Eagle, I would say. But you can also look at Innova back
so
in
that's why it was
2014,
bigger to me. Like the whole company was built on him. Innova was already established.
Was already built.
So
Same thing. Discraft was already established. Innova was already established.
Both big.
But at the same time, like Innova back in 2011, you had Paul Macbeth on the team. You had Ricky Wysocki on the team. You had Nico LaCastro. You had Will Schuschik. You had the Wonder Boys. And Will Schuschik was, and a lot of pros will say this, was Innova's like golden boy. But then Paul excelled when it came to the World Championships, and then he became the Wonder Boy. He became the Golden Boy. And then what happened to those other players? Okay, Innova stopped treating them as well. So all three of them went to Prodigy. 2012 rolls around, I think is when Prodigy came out, or 2013, whatever it was. That rolls around. All three of them left Innova because Paul had taken that number one spot. Now Paul holds that from 2012 all the way up until 2018. He's, making good money with these, by far making the most money out of everyone in disc golf from Innova. But then so it's like, why would Paul leave? So I almost look at it as like Paul was the first one to do it, which is why I kind of give the nod of I think it's a little bit bigger.
Your perspective.
Simon
I can see
also,
your perspective.
Also, James Conrad hit the greatest shot in disc golf, which, don't get me wrong, very, very much opened the doors for MVP to be able to afford the Simon Lizotte. So not that Simon's the best YouTuber in disc golf. He's a fan favorite in disc golf by far. He's one of the most.
You have Jefferson on here right now.
I know,
you go
throwing
say
shots. What the hell, dude?
What's that? Yeah, sorry. and just all those things. And so, yes, Simon's was absolutely huge. I could very well make an argument it was the number 2, but yeah, I still kind of.
I can
Paul's
see
above
both
it just
perspectives. Yeah,
yes,
and to be clear,
100%.
it was earth shattering when we're like, Paul's gonna move. There's no way. Like Paul is Innova. I remember that.
I think when Paul. And it came out that he was making $1 million a year. I definitely knew when Ricky signed a big contract with someone, he was going to get close to $1 million a year. And I knew wherever Simon went was probably going to get close to $1 million a year.
Yeah, because of Paul. So if you want to talk about the ripple effect, Paul's was way
the ripple effect.
bigger.
I think is yes, the wave that it kind of created for the doors that it opened in disc golf for Paul and Discraft to announce their contract and kind of make it public. I think was huge.
Yeah. Well, I just find it's intriguing. There's been conversation over the last few years about how there's been different eras of disc golf. Even Gannon talked about the new era, right? And how a lot of these people missed the prime of the disc golf growth, and then it kind of felt like that was like Climo. I mean, still the best and talked about, but like he missed out on it. And then all of a sudden, surprise to me. That's the interesting piece here. Leaving Innova is like a shocker, right? That's crazy, but it's like. That is interesting just to kind of come out of the woodwork, which is what Climo's doing. That part is intriguing to me.
I want to give one take on this happening because I've seen a few amount of social media commentary on the fact that Innova is let another player slip through their fingers. This is what they're good at. This is what they do. My take is that it wouldn't have worked for Innova to say, I'm going to use the number 200,000, whether that's fabricated or not. I'm going to use it for the sake of this conversation. It wouldn't have worked for Innova to say, hey, Ken, we're going to give you 200,000. We're going to market you and we're going to make you a star. That's what he already was with Innova. It wouldn't work. There's no way that they were going to sell all of a sudden all these Ken Climo discs because Innova decided to market him more. It would not have happened. The only way that this actually makes money for anybody is for Ken to go to, for another manufacturer to grab him and be like, we're going to do it. Because now it gets all this media attention. It re-excites the collectors who are going to be able to get a Ken Climo buzz or whatever. It'll just be wild. And people are going to buy these discs. Discraft's going to make all their money back, whatever it is. And it was a good deal. But Innova couldn't have done this. It's only a sad story for Innova because they almost had to let him go. What are they going to do?
I agree with you. I talked about this on my other podcast. Is that Innova re-signing Ken, if it you said
wouldn't have worked.
It's just he's already been with the company forever. They'd just be, I feel honestly losing money. Where him signing like to a Discraft, or I think it'd be even cool if he signed to like an MVP, like the futuristic disc golf. That would have been crazy, and that
would have felt more wild. It would have felt more wild.
So it's kind of these contracts we see in baseball, like Shohei Ohtani or Juan Soto. It's like sometimes it's just like not worth it for the brands that already have the teams that already have them, where a team that's basically desperate to get a World Series win will pay as much money as opposed to a team that's like,
I think that's a little bit tougher of a comparison.
Yes.
Because Juan Soto and Shohei are in the prime of their careers to where, the Mets are offering $765 million.
You get what I'm saying? Like, why do these players always leave? They never re-sign for the million, the big record contract. Every player always leaves for the record contract.
Because the other company's not putting up as much. Like, Mookie Betts would have died a Red Sox if the Red Sox had offered him literally close to the same as the Dodgers offered him.
That's what I'm saying. The Dodgers are like, we'll do anything for Mookie, and the Boston is
they can afford it.
But also, Boston is probably like, I mean, like, we could probably just get somewhere else. Like, Mookie was good here, but like, we're gonna look to the future. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, people make bad decisions, which that being the Red Sox, one of the worst decisions they've made in a while. But that's why we can't compare that, because Climo's not about to have a resurgence in disc golf, where he's not getting a tour card and playing in the 2025 tour season, right? I think we can all, without sources, we can all say that that's probably not going to happen. So what is the play for whoever's picking him up? What is the power play behind this? How do they justify, let's take Matt's number of the $200,000 or Ultiworld's number?
They're going to sell that easily with like one or two disc releases. They'll do that because people are going to be like, Ken Climo on Discraft? Like,
but I think at first, for sure. But I think like maybe like 3 years from now, it might be like a short deal where Ken might be back with Innova.
Well, I don't think he'll go back, but
I don't know.
Either way,
Tom Brady,
but good for Ken, regardless of the number. I think it's a pretty big deal. Just curious on that debate. Are you all having fun seeing, like, it's not only Isaac, but I'm going to pick on him, but all these Easter eggs in social media? I think if you're following along, I feel like, and Jefferson, I know you watch this stuff, I feel like we've seen an Easter egg of just about every manufacturer in one of his videos. There's got to be some hint of Discraft, MVP, Discmania, DGA. Like, what am I missing? Like, there's been something, whether it be a basket or a disc or a box or a sign.
Well, it's the people who notice when he's like, "Hey, I'm playing Disc Golf Valley," and then you see the Detroit. I'm like, God, I didn't even look for that. And you see the Detroit.
He did it on purpose. It's
all on purpose.
I don't look for those things. And I watched it for a second. I was like, oh, cool.
He walked through the airport.
Shut it off. I scrolled around.
He walked through the airport, looked at all the gates, and he said, Detroit. And he sat down and he took a picture.
No one knows if he's actually going there. But yeah, he sat down there.
I don't know, Jefferson. What do you think? Just I feel like watching that.
I love it. I do this for a living, right? Basically, so I know it's another video coming out about it, but sometimes when you're seeing that stuff, it's just don't think of the obvious ones. Sometimes you gotta think a little bit deeper about what everything means and.
What course was he playing in Disc Golf Valley, for instance?
No, there were layers
of Maple Hill, which MVP sponsors MVP or the Maple Hill.
No, it's a real thing. Yeah. There are I'm convinced they're having fun with layers on layers. And
I'll text them right now.
That friend group definitely in on it. They even comment after in the thread and comment back, which is another layer. I'm not joking, right? And Jefferson, you're nodding your head.
100%.
They're deep. They're 3 or 4 layers. Like Isaac posts something, Gannon comments. There's a response back with the eyes. And it's not just like, it is just being fun and playful, but they also know what they're doing. And I'm just like, you talked about the Ezra Robinson video and how you can create more conversation. I think they're creating more conversation, and their manufacturers, wherever they're going to be signing, they know that's happening. Like, you're getting that player with that kind of like, personality, which is like perfect if you're looking for that, right? They're going to have fun. They're going to have a presence in the media world, and they're going to know how to tease it and maybe hopefully not go too far, right? That's always the balance. I don't know. I've been having fun watching that. It'll be interesting to see what other off-season moves may be happening. We're hearing lots of discussion, as we already debated on. There may be more ripples to the size of the tour in 2025. We saw Stacy Kiefer, Kevin Kiefer formally announce. I think there's been a couple other names, and as we just said, we're not going to be surprised if we hear a bunch of other people who maybe still play disc golf, but maybe don't make the full tour, right? Just because expenses are going to be quite different, or sponsorship deals. So I don't know. There's a lot happening. Anything else on players or contracts?
No, because it's all just speculation at that point.
All right. Well,
I'm just waiting for some,
there.
just Stacy and Kevin. You can talk about it to where they're both. Kevin's a little bit above middle of the pack player, but he's not that top 32 who make it into the tour finale. Stacy, kind of same thing. I think Stacy's actually an incredible FPO player, and if she really found that drive, and she said this in her post, she's like, I never really found that drive for the touring lifestyle.
That's got to be part of it.
But I'm like, if Stacy did find it, she's a really good disc golfer, but mentally she just never found it. You can't fault her for
Heather
that. Heather Young.
Dang, I was thinking about it the other day.
MCO one year, right? And then she just dipped out next year. She's like, I'm going to go be a nurse.
But it's interesting. Okay. You have to find the fire. So, I think we talked about it. You need to be authentic. That's true. But guess what? If you are also making twice as much money, that has to be a factor for people.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, right? Because you have to truly love it if you want to grind it, right? But you could just enjoy the sport if you can make a living and maybe stock away a little bit for savings.
Look, there are people who make...
So we're losing... We've already known this, but we're losing talent on the tour.
Yeah.
Because of pay.
But also, I'll say this.
Jefferson's going to make a video, or he did.
Yeah, I'll say this. There are also players who do make a lot of money who absolutely hate doing what they do. Like, they hate the touring lifestyle. They hate driving around in RVs. But
why am I so good at disc golf?
Well, they literally say it to where it's like, you know what? I found that I'm really good at this. I can make it work. And it's, don't get me wrong, it's a more enjoyable living than working in 9 to 5 somewhere, or, breaking your back doing concrete. But at the same time, they're like, yeah, it sucks. I don't ever see my family, don't ever see my good friends, stuff like that, to where it happens. It takes a very strong breed of someone to look at Gannon right now, is loving life, makes a ton of money with Discmania right now. He kicked ass this year on the tour. And the second the offseason started, what's he doing? He's out playing Des Moines, throwing skip shots across a frozen lake. And he's just having a fun time with disc golf. He's someone where I hope he keeps that drive until he's 40 years old. But yeah, it's a grueling process.
Backtrack 2 minutes. Ken Climo is going to lose all of his whatever he was getting from Innova, royalties, disc names, whatever those licensing or whatever he had negotiated. I don't know what it is. But he's going to lose all of that. It's going away.
Yeah.
So that had to be part. That had to be part of the deal. Like, he would have to make more than that for sure, or else it wouldn't be worth it for him.
He's going to go from $0 a year with Innova to $0 a year without Innova. It's like,
but I'm glad you kind of said that. And I did not dissing on Ken Climo. Like, he was in the sport when I came into the sport. But I don't think that was really pushing sales at Innova. Like, I don't think it was like people were like scrambling for Ken Climo discs. So
Innova also wasn't doing any favors.
Back in the day, yes. Like, everyone, most people that play for Innova, they all throw the KC Pro Rock. And so you got to think the KC Pro Rock, he makes an X amount of royalty on it. Now, Innova's royalties, from what I heard back in the day, were 25 cents for signature series discs. So that's a disc where when you won a world champion and you got your name on a disc, like an Avery Jenkins Destroyer or a Paul McBeth Ricky Wise Hockey Destroyer or whatever, for those discs, I heard back in the day, it was 25 cents a disc that was sold. Now, other companies are at, $1 or $2 per disc. But I did hear that Innova is on the cheaper side when it comes to signature series discs. That's different than their tour series discs.
Okay.
Like the Nate Sexton
Firebird. I was just going to say.
The Nate Sexton Firebird, he might make anywhere from $2 to $4 per disc.
That's changed his life, he said.
That's changed his life. But the Nate Sexton Excalibur, I think maybe it's gone up. He might make $1 per disc now. But if that was 10 years ago, it was probably only 25 cents a disc for those ones compared to his Firebirds. So, yeah.
All right. We're getting closer to winding down. I'm
ramped up right now.
Yeah, I can tell. Nick is getting all of his words in.
It's his gaming chair.
Yeah, he's catching up.
It's like a massage.
Yeah, exactly. I got
what's going on.
I'm not sitting here slouched and be like, when's the show ending? My shoulders are killing me. Like, now I can lean back a little bit. I can get back in. But no, these are fun subjects. Like, these are cool things to talk about in disc golf.
You okay with Missy Gannon winning Player of the Year? Ben, does that sit right with you? We're not going to make this a long segment.
Am I okay with it?
That? Yeah.
Does it sit right with you?
Yeah, I'm okay with it, yes. Do I think it was the right? No.
But the people voted. I mean, it is
Well,
right.
well,
Did it?
the
we-
people, media.
You guys had a
and tour
conversation
card
about
holders.
like how like kind of like screwy the actual voting was.
I will
how
tell
it's not
you,
like
I voted as a media member, and I can tell you it was ranked voting for player of the year. So I had to put in who is my first pick.
I'm going to be fairly technical, Matt. I'm going to let you keep going. Not ranked choice voting, which is a very specific type of voting, which would actually be an excellent voting method here.
I'm telling
But
you, they asked me who
you
my
just
number one
ranked
is.
your players, right?
They said no. Yeah, they said who is your first pick for player of the year. That's what they said, and I said Kristen Tatar. Now Lot. She just posted that today. It's
Kristen Lott.
That's right.
She says, so now you don't have to worry about mispronouncing my name. That was funny to read. Kristen Lott. Now, they said, who would be your second? I said, Missy Gannon. Who would be your third? And I'm going to probably get it wrong here. I think I said like Holland Handley, or no, Evelina. And then it said, who would be your fourth? And I said Holland Handley. Who would be your fifth? I said Owen Scoggins. That's what we put in as media. I'm assuming when that goes in, it was going to be like who got the most votes in number one. That would be the winner. But Josh, you've done a little digging. It seems to be different than that.
Yeah, well, we don't have
breaking
to like
news.
debate this.
The disc golf world. You
No,
ready
it
for this?
seems like it was percentage based. No,
This is old news. This is old
I'm
news.
just kidding. I'm
We're
just
like a
joking.
week behind because we didn't have a show last
maybe
week.
she
I'm
did.
just
win.
joking.
We don't need to drag this out. But no, like what I was seeing, the Pro Tour didn't put out like all their calculations, but I am pretty sure that Kristen won the media vote and tour card holder vote. For sure. When I say won it, meaning she had the most first place votes.
And Missy got second.
Missy got Missy got the points. The issue is Kristen got third place in Pro Tour points. Third place. And this is what keyed me off to be like, then the math, like that's really interesting to me because if you win 2 out of 3 categories, I think you win. Like you win 2, they said 33%, 33%, 33%. You win 2 of them, you should get 66% and you win. But what they're actually doing is proportionally distributing those 33% based on the rankings. And I just think that's like, it's not an incorrect formula and you can choose to do it that way if you want, but it's like, Matt, my opinion is you should have been asked to say who your player of the year was, not your players.
Previous
Just
years.
like you should pick who was the player of the year, and then whoever gets the most votes is the media player of the year. And
It is
the tour
interesting.
card, they get the because why would you have to say Missy Gannon, Holland Handley? Oh, like they weren't your player of the year. You should have thrown out like made up names from the bottom of the tour.
They didn't do that. They only gave you selected names.
Oh, well, even like
You had
worse.
to pick 5?
Even worse.
I'm pretty sure it was pretty sure it was from a list. It was from a list. It might have been the FPO, but it was 5. Top 5.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I just like it's not
I'm
egregious.
not sure why, but it
Missy
must be for
Gannon's
that
very
reason.
close.
It must
but
have
the point
been
is,
for that reason. Yeah.
The point is Missy had an incredible year, so I'm not actually discounting that because the fact that you're on the top of the points means something. But that's why she got 33% of the weighting. So good for her. Like we're not discounting it, but she didn't get the rest of it. And it's like, I don't know. Anyway, I think Kristen should have won it, but congrats to Missy. And I mean that, like congrats to Missy. You played your way into a spot where the math won you the player of the year. That's incredible. Like that's not a knock, but I want different math. Keep it simple. Like, why is there so much weird ambiguity? Like, this is their website says 33%, 33%, 33%. That means you cannot have a tie, which I love. And then they went out and they found a way to divide 3 and get a tie.
But 33% to the winner would mean that Missy, let's just say, for instance, I'm making up a number, got 25% or whatever, right? Is that kind of what I'm hearing, right? That's how it would be. So then Missy would come away with 50, but then the difference between the tour standings is what changed that to where it was a tie.
Yes.
Or
I
whatever.
mean, yeah,
Okay,
Kristen won 2 out of the 3.
But no, you're saying it that
Missy,
way.
yeah.
I'm talking about it's percentage based to your point.
Yeah.
So if Kristen got 33% is what I'm saying, Missy actually got a percentage out of that too. She got 25%.
Yes.
I'm just making up
Yes.
a number.
So
yes.
why wouldn't you do it to where you have
Just
100
someone
people?
won it. Yeah.
Yeah, why wouldn't you do it to where 100 people are allowed to vote?
I bet they're
Let's say
reconsidering.
33% of those are players, 33 are media, and 33 are Pro Tour staff, whatever it is. Let's say there's 99 votes. Whoever has the majority votes should win player of the year.
You could do it that way, or you could just do it how it's really simple, which is let the media
Straight
vote, let the tour card players vote, and just say who's your player of the year.
Yeah.
Don't give me 5 names.
Is it said how many people in each category there are in there? Or is that public or no?
how many people are in the
I mean, it shouldn't be
category?
secret.
Like how
Who
many
is
media
media?
votes? How many
Oh,
media
that's an
votes?
interesting question.
Like
Matt, I will say
Matt,
I
you're a
have
media
one.
vote, right?
Yes, but I was thinking I do not know the answer. So think through
Jefferson's
that.
like, I didn't get a
Like,
media
where's
vote.
mine, dude?
No,
Hey,
real
and
quick.
to be clear,
Dude, I've been
I
saying
didn't
that for
get a
4
media
years,
vote either
Jefferson.
this year. I didn't
I've-
get one this year. I had
So-
one in the past.
For
Matt
5
got one when
years.
he worked with the Pro Tour.
Yeah,
for
but I
5
got one
years we
then
were
too,
doing
and then
this.
they took me off.
Okay.
Bro, I didn't get one either. What the?
Listen. They send it out, and I feel special every year. It goes, "This is the highest honor. We appreciate that you've done this for years past." It says we take this very seriously. You have to agree that you're not being paid off. All this different stuff. It's interesting. But so you go in and you start voting. It's pretty cool to have that privilege. But yeah, I don't know how many. Just for fun, you all just said you don't have it, and that's not me saying, "Look at me, you, me." This is me saying, like, think through this. Actually, who are these people? Is it 10 media people? Or is it 30?
Foundation's got people.
Yeah, like, is it?
If it's
I was
30,
just about to
that's,
say,
that's
do-
a lot.
Do
Like in the
Brody,
media
Trevor,
world.
and Hunter have one? Do the 2 or 3 guys
Well,
from Ultia Worlds have
Pro
one? Like,
Tour
I'm
players get
just
one,
asking.
but I don't think Brody would double up.
No,
he
I'm
would
just
get
saying
a
for
player
media
vote.
side of things.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm pretty
you
sure,
know,
like,
does Ulti Worlds
Hunter-
get 2
yeah.
votes?
Yes,
Does
yes,
Foundation get
yes.
3 votes?
Yes.
Probably. Yeah.
Should Stagger Stance get 4 votes now? You
So-
know, like that's how I'm.
It's like
looking
the
at
electoral college.
Yeah, or not.
it. Or
All right. It's interesting. So congrats to Missy. Sorry, Kristen gets to, but what an end of the season.
Where's our boy Kearns?
Oh, hold on. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But, well, he wouldn't talk
He would
about
not.
this. I'm sorry.
Evan, we love you. You didn't want
Yeah.
any part of this tonight.
Yeah.
So too bad for Kristen. She gets announced 1001 rated and makes a nice post, and then womp womp, like
womp.
take it away. And then it's like, well, surely I'm getting player of the year. Womp, taken away.
Wow.
No, obviously
I'll change my
she's
name.
got a great perspective on everything.
She's like, apparently they hate Tatar, so I'm gonna womp womp.
Hey, is Casey? Hey, you ready? Is Casey White? We're done here. This is like we're bringing it home. Is Casey White the king of Massachusetts? Ben? Yes. No.
Technically, in the
Yes.
bracket play, he is the king of Massachusetts.
He won a title.
He
All
won
right.
the king of Massachusetts. As for ratings,
He's technically
um,
the king of Massachusetts.
Yeah, he also is the top.
Yeah.
As
but
far as
I don't know what he was referring to.
But
It seems like he was
Drew
referring
Gibson
to the
was pissed
crown.
off.
He was
Drew
referring-
Gibson's pissed off at that.
He was
So-
referring to him being the highest rated player in Massachusetts, I think. I mean, can someone
Yes.
look up the post?
Okay. I was
Yeah,
just
but
saying
yeah,
this.
you made a
I-
video
he-
yet about Drew Gibson raining on
Technically,
Casey White?
he
Yeah,
is.
where,
It's in the works for
did-
sure.
Where
Okay.
did Drew post this? I've never even saw
Facebook
that.
discussion group.
Oh, and he,
Technically,
he
Casey
did a little
is
jab. He did a
Technically,
little
he
jab
is
while
the
Ben was
king of
videoing.
Massachusetts.
Ben, while you were videoing a vlog, he did a little jab to Simon. He's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I guess you're not the best."
Well, I think that
player
was
in
more
Massachusetts."
just like the joke. I didn't know it. Like
I don't think
obviously the
Casey and
Facebook.
Simon have a problem.
No.
I was just saying,
No,
like it's
no, not at all.
Wasn't
But
it
that's all I'm
purely-
saying. He
wasn't it
technically.
purely rating based.
Pretty sure that's how he made
Like,
it.
Yeah,
What's
that's
the
Yes,
case
I'm
in
gonna
this? Wasn't-
find
so,
it.
So
he's the
technically,
Massachusetts veteran.
You
and
can't
he-
debate that because Casey is technically the highest rated person.
No,
in
but I'm saying
Massachusetts.
technically
that's
he
He
was
literally-
said
king
this. I'm going to read it.
He's
Don't-
technically
don't-
the king
don't
because
do
he
the
won the
bracket thing.
crown.
Don't do the bracket thing because
After 6 long years.
do the crown.
After 6 long years, the king returns to the throne. This is obviously a play on words. He did the king of Massachusetts. Okay. For the first time since the end of 2018 season, I am once again the highest rated player in Massachusetts. At the latest update, I hit a new personal best, and that's what it took to edge out Simon Lizotte by 1 point at the end of the year. When it comes to ratings, I barely pay attention except for the number 1 spot in Massachusetts. This has been a long time coming, and I don't plan on giving up my spot anytime soon. The majority of that is about I have the spot as the highest rated player. The play on words is the king returns. That is what people didn't get. That's a bracket system in Massachusetts.
No, it is, but at the same, I don't think.
Wait,
that's what
why would he say the
that.
king returns if he's currently the king?
Because he wasn't the king of, he wasn't the bracket king of Massachusetts in 2018, and I'm pretty sure it was Kyle Moriarty.
All right,
who
he's
was the
a
king.
play on words because
No,
of
he's-
that.
I don't.
the
I don't
king
even think it
this
was supposed to
year.
be a play on words. I think he was
I don't
literally just
understand.
saying like, "Hey,
I don't think
I'm
it was
the
a
king of
play.
Massachusetts."
I
because
thought it
I'm-
was like I edged out Simon with my rating. Very
I
simple.
literally,
agree.
I think it's one of those things where people are just diving too far deep into it, to where it's like he literally just talks about he's the highest rated player in Massachusetts. That right there with his post, what he's talking about, does make him the king of Massachusetts. He is the highest rated player in Massachusetts. Great, he's earned that title for it. Now we also
You would
can't
have to
take the,
you would have to agree on the terms that highest rated player means you're the best though, and that's what the king would mean.
No.
And that's not
No.
what it means. Like
No,
being
exactly.
being
That's
1
not what it
point
means.
higher doesn't
Yes.
mean that.
Yes,
you're the king.
because
That's what people are having
look
an
at-
issue
Yeah,
with.
but
Look
I
at the-
think
look
he
at the
was
career-
having
look at the
fun
career.
saying that is what it means. He
Yeah.
was saying that. And obviously, Casey, I don't think is literally like high on his ego saying I'm better than Simon.
Yeah.
He's
Oh,
saying I had
God.
Simon out. We both live in Massachusetts,
Yeah.
so I am the king. Anyway, it's kind of all fun and games, but let me just finish with this because really fun and games, like Drew Gibson.
What did Drew say?
Drew Gibson suggesting that Simon doesn't even think it was fun and games.
Yeah.
But I think Drew also knows how to stir up the media game. And so who knows what he's
Yeah,
really
I didn't
thinking
see
about.
that part.
He was
Does
he
anyone
was,
have his
he was
word for
ripping
word?
back and forth with
I got
Casey
the screenshot
in the
of it.
chats. Oh, I've just
I
screenshot.
saw-
Yeah,
I didn't see
screenshots of
him.
it. Yeah, thank you.
Because I
You
know
know,
we
I
all saw
saw-
it. What did it say, Jefferson? It said something like that. And he did like emoji or something.
Just watch one of his videos on
Yeah,
Discord.
it'll be
World.
coming
It's
out,
coming.
guys.
Okay, all right.
Oh, man.
We'll slow
Yeah.
it
But
But I'm
literally,
just
they were
saying-
snipping back and forth about your abilities, and he's like, "Look, Simon's like basically crushed you this year. He's single-handedly pushed the sport. If you count one quote unquote metric, aka rating, that you're the king, but I don't see where it comes from." He's basically saying like, he's just kind of ripping on him, and how could you say this about Simon? And Simon apparently didn't think it was all fun and games. That's my.
I think
interpretation.
my favorite part is when Casey ended the final. Well, first it was awesome
Yes.
that he like formally
Laid
did
in.
Drew, comma, and then like made it like a whole letter. That was funny.
Yes,
But he
yes.
ended it with "Glad you respect my abilities" with the handshake emojis, just to show the
Yes.
cordial conversation on Facebook, as that was happened there always.
Yes, exactly. And that's when Drew's like, "Your abilities?" question mark. Anyway,
Yeah, I
Look,
don't know.
social
I have
media.
no comment.
Yeah, I'm having fun with this one. I actually am not trying to like create any drama with it. I think we
That's
like
my
Casey
job.
White on this show. Yeah, Jefferson, you can do whatever you
We
want.
like all these players. That's the thing. Like,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't know.
Can I
Drew
speak
Gibson's
on
never
this
come on
really
here. Have
quick?
we invited Drew Gibson?
Yes,
Is
we
he-
have, and he
That's my former employer.
he
Can't talk
about it
actually
anymore.
one time said maybe yeah, and then he cold shouldered us like straight up, like
So
no response
can I-
after chatting.
Can I
for a
really
while.
quick just like talk a little facts with all this? If you guys had to think, I went
You
on to
got facts.
statmando.com for this. So shout out Statmando. What do you think in the year of 2024, Casey and Simon's record against each other is?
It's
Not
gotta
9
be-
and 5 because Drew
Oh,
Gibson
yeah,
already
Drew
posted
said
it.
it.
Oh, Drew already said all that?
Drew
Oh, I'm
already
sorry.
did all the stat.
I'm
Man, this
sorry.
is my
Okay.
point. No,
But I was
don't
gonna
say
say,
sorry.
like their
You're
top
fine.
10 percentage is 20% versus 26%. Like realistically, like yes, Simon is a better player than Casey is, and I'll
That's
say
the
that
funny
100%.
part is the world's getting flustered.
Yeah.
Like Casey
I
was
don't
having
think
fun with it.
Yeah, I think people shouldn't be getting flustered about it. I maybe because I know Casey, maybe because I know Simon. I
Social media.
personally don't think Simon would have taken too much offense to any of this, but I literally think it was just straight up, hey, I'm the highest rated player in Massachusetts. You know, that's great. And it also, shout out to Casey for that. Casey's a touring disc golfer. Simon's been doing it way longer than Casey has. And for Casey to be the highest rated player, good for him. That's awesome.
Also on a contract here. Maybe he wants to make that really aware to everyone.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah. I don't know. All right, look, we've had a fun show. We have a
I'm
list of
looking
other
forward
things we
for
could
Jefferson's
cover.
video on this because I want to see that.
All
Yeah.
right, so everybody, we don't usually do a lot of cross promotion, but Jefferson, you stuck on here for 2 hours, which is actually incredible. And I think you
Appreciate
brought a lot of, you actually helped us stay true to our show name, which is Staggered Stance, and you had some different opinions, which I loved. And so, yeah, everybody, Disc Golf World, check it out, whether you agree or not. You can fire off some comments on there. I don't know what, like or dislike, get that 95-5 ratio going. But yeah, like I appreciate your perspective. I think our sport needs a bunch of different angles, everything from media to all of this. And yeah, I don't think I agree with every take and every story you put out, but that doesn't
Good.
stop me from loving it. So love that you stood with us here for 2 hours.
No, I appreciate it. Long time listener. Back in like I used to work on a strawberry farm in high school, and this is the only podcast I would listen to.
Come
live. Pick
on, get out.
strawberries.
Totally
Wait,
appreciate that, bro.
You said former employer. You meant Drew Gibson or Strawberry Farm?
Drew Gibson.
Oh, I didn't
I
know
used to be his
that.
caddy for one event, and then he got injured.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh,
I
Hey,
did
and
not know
if
that.
you want to fire off, no, actually, I don't. I was gonna say if you want to forward that fancy spreadsheet you got with royalties, go right on ahead. But probably, actually, I don't know
We'll
if
keep
I
that one
wanna
away
know.
for a while.
I want
Okay.
Jefferson to be my source for
I
that
don't
one.
know
Yeah.
if I want to
Yeah.
know, to be honest.
The
I don't want
chat-
to be that guy.
No, and the chat got a little bothered because I cut you off when you started talking about the spreadsheet, and I'm like, guys, he was not going to say more about the spreadsheet. Like, he said, thank you. Yeah, you were not going to. So I might have
yet.
interrupted him, but I knew he wasn't going further with that. No, this has been awesome. Really cool show, guys. Off season is different than in years past, but I bet we're going to start to see some more stuff, and stick around. We'll keep talking about it. The holidays are
Hey,
coming
look,
up.
I did a video with Jefferson earlier this year, and
That's
I can
right.
tell you,
Yeah, I watched
no
that.
fabrication. There's no clickbait to it. It was, it was great. So if you guys
Yeah.
want to check it
Wait,
out,
are we
go
sure
for
there
it.
was no clickbait? What was the thumbnail?
I think it was like
Like
Paul and
that.
Dylan save disc golf.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
You got 30,000 views on your story, dude.
Yeah, it literally was Paul Macbeth and Dylan Cease in the title, and then it was just an interview of me. And Jeff Gordon
Wait,
came in.
Jefferson, are you coming
Yeah,
to
so that is
Disc East?
clickbait. That is
this
it.
year?
I know.
for sure.
I was just trying to make a joke with Jefferson.
Boom, there you go. Jefferson, if you want to meet Jefferson, come in Disc East.
Oh yeah,
He'll be
you're
there.
coming.
I'll be
All
there
right.
for sure.
All right,
Again.
well, we'll see you
Very
there.
cool, dude. We appreciate that shout out. You've been listening for a long time. That's really cool. Nick and I started this, I think it's literally 5 seasons ago. So for us, this has been a long haul. The name's changed, but we're still talking disc golf. We appreciate you coming on. Anything else before we close it out? Anybody?
Nothing from me. No.
I think that's pretty much. Hey, everybody, thanks for tuning in on this awesome Monday night of Staggered Stance. I forget the show episode number, but we appreciate everyone listening in. Thank you for Jefferson and the disc golf world for coming on to the show and having just really, really fun debates all back and forth. Not even debates, just fun conversation throughout the whole night. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe on the YouTube channel. Check us out on all your favorite podcast platforms. Tell someone you love them this week. Catch you guys in the next one.
That's right. I forget how to close out the show. I've got a lot of buttons here, but here we go. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. Nick, Jefferson, Josh, Ben, Kenny, you're awesome. Peace out, everybody.
Adios.
Until next time,
Peace.
see you out there. Bye.